The Book of 2 Chronicles, Chapter 1. And Shalomah the son of David was strengthened in his kingdom, and Yahuwah his Elohim was with him, and magnified him exceedingly. Then Shalomah spake unto all Yasharel, to the captains of thousands and of hundreds, and to the judges, and to every governor in all Yasharel, the chief of the fathers. So Shalomah and all the congregation with him went to the high place that was at Gibeon, for there was a tabernacle of the congregation of Elohim, which Moses, the servant of Yahuwah, had made in the wilderness. But the ark of Elohim had David brought up from Kiriath Yearim to the place which David had prepared for it, for he had pitched a tent for it at Yerushalayim. Moreover, the brazen altar that Bezaleel the son of Uri, the son of Hur, had made, he put before the tabernacle of Yahuwah, and Shalomah and the congregation sought unto it. And Shalomah went up thither to the brazen altar before Yahuwah, which was at the tabernacle of the congregation, and offered 1,000 burnt offerings upon it. And that night did Elohim appear unto Shalomah, and said unto him, Ask what I shall give thee. And Shalomah said unto Elohim, Thou hast showed great mercy unto David my father, and hast made me to reign in his stead. Now, O Yahuwah Elohim, let thy promise unto David my father be established, for thou hast made me king over a people like the dust of the earth in multitude. Give me now wisdom and knowledge, that I may go out and come in before this people. For who can judge this thy people, that is so great? And Elohim said to Shalomah, Because this was in thine heart, and thou hast not asked riches, wealth, or honor, nor the life of thine enemies, neither yet hast asked long life, but hast asked wisdom and knowledge for thyself, that thou mayest judge my people, over whom I have made thee king. Wisdom and knowledge is granted unto thee, and I will give thee riches and wealth and honor, such as none of the kings have had that have been before thee, neither shall there any after thee have the like. Then Shalomah came from his journey to the high place that was at Gibeon to Yerushalayim, from before the tabernacle of the congregation, and reigned over Yasharel. And Shalomah gathered chariots and horsemen, and he had 1,400 chariots and 12,000 horsemen, which he placed in the chariot cities, and with the king at Yerushalayim. And the king made silver and gold at Yerushalayim as plenteous as stones. And cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees that are in the vale for abundance. And Shalomah had horses brought out of Egypt, and linen yarn. The king's merchants received the linen yarn at a price. And they fetched up and brought forth out of Egypt a chariot for 600 shekels of silver, and a horse for 150. And so brought they out horses for all the kings of the Hittites, and for the kings of Syria by their means. Second Chronicles 2. And Shalomah determined to build a house for the name of Yahuwah, and a house for his kingdom. And Shalomah told out 310,000 men to bear burdens, and 400,000 to hew in the mountain, and 3,600 to oversee them. And Shalomah sent to Huram the king of Tyre, saying, As thou didst deal with David my father, and didst send him cedars to build him a house to dwell therein, even so deal with me. Behold, I build a house to the name of Yahuwah my Elohim, to dedicate it to him, and to burn before him sweet incense, and for the continual showbread, and for the burnt offerings, morning and evening, on the Sabbaths, and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts of Yahuwah our Elohim. This is an ordinance forever to Yasharel. And the house which I build is great, for great is our Elohim above all gods. But who is able to build him a house, seeing the heavens and heaven of heavens cannot contain him? Who am I then, that I should build him a house, save only to burn sacrifice before him? Send me now therefore a man cunning to work in gold, and in silver, and in brass, and in iron, and in purple, and crimson, and blue, and that can skill to grave with the cunning men that are with me in Yehuda and in Jerusalem, whom David my father did provide. Send me also cedar trees, fir trees, and algum trees out of Lebanon, for I know that thy servants can skill to cut timber in Lebanon. And, behold, my servants shall be with thy servants, even to prepare me timber in abundance, for the house which I am about to build shall be wonderful great. And, behold, I will give to thy servants, the hewers that cut timber, 20,000 measures of beaten wheat, and 20,000 measures of barley, and 20,000 baths of wine, and 20,000 baths of oil. Then Huram the king of Tyre answered in writing, which he sent to Sholomah, Because Yahuwah hath loved his people, he hath made thee king over them. Huram said, Moreover, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, that made heaven and earth, who hath given to David the king a wise son, endued with prudence and understanding, that might build a house for Yahuwah and a house for his kingdom. And now I have sent a cunning man, endued with understanding, of Huram my fathers, the son of a woman of the daughters of Dan, and his father was a man of Tyre, skillful to work in gold and in silver, in brass, in iron, in stone, and in timber, in purple, in blue, and in fine linen, and in crimson, also to grave any manner of graving, and to find out every device which shall be put to him, with thy cunning men, and with the cunning men of my Adonai David, thy father. Now therefore the wheat and the barley, the oil and the wine, which my Adonai has spoken of, let him send unto his servants. And we will cut wood out of Lebanon, as much as thou shalt need. And we will bring it to thee in floats by sea to Joppa, and thou shalt carry it up to Jerusalem. And Sholomah numbered all the strangers that were in the land of Yasharel, after the numbering wherewith David his father had numbered them. And they were found 150,000 and 3,600. And he set 70,000 of them to be bearers of burdens, and 80,000 to be hewers in the mountain, and 3,600 overseers to set the people a work. Second Chronicles 3. Then Sholomah began to build the house of Yahuwah at Jerusalem in Mount Moriah, where Yahuwah appeared unto David his father, in the place that David had prepared in the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite. And he began to build in the 2nd day of the 2nd month, in the 4th year of his reign. Now these are the things wherein Sholomah was instructed for the building of the house of Elohim. The length by cubits, after the first measure, was 80 cubits, and the breadth 20 cubits. And the porch that was in the front of the house, the length of it was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the height was 120. And he overlaid it within with pure gold. And the greater house he sealed with fir trees, which he overlaid with fine gold, and set thereon palm trees and chains. And he garnished the house with precious stones for beauty, and the gold was gold of Parvaim. He overlaid also the house, the beams, the posts, and the walls thereof, and the doors thereof, with gold, engraved cherubim on the walls. And he made the most holy house, the length whereof was according to the breadth of the house, 20 cubits, and the breadth thereof 20 cubits. And he overlaid it with fine gold, amounting to 600 talents. And the weight of the nails was 50 shekels of gold, and he overlaid the upper chambers with gold. And in the most holy house he made 2 cherubim of image work, and overlaid them with gold. And the wings of the cherubim were 20 cubits long. One wing of the one cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house, and the other wing was likewise 5 cubits, reaching to the wing of the other cherub. And one wing of the other cherub was 5 cubits, reaching to the wall of the house. And the other wing was 5 cubits also, joining to the wing of the other cherub. The wings of these cherubim spread themselves forth 20 cubits, and they stood on their feet, and their faces were inward. And he made the veil of blue, and purple, and crimson, and fine linen, and wrought cherubim thereon. Also he made before the house 2 pillars of 30 and 5 cubits high, and the chapiter that was on the top of each of them was 5 cubits. And he made chains, as in the oracle, and put them on the heads of the pillars, and made 100 pomegranates, and put them on the chains. And he reared up the pillars before the temple, one on the right hand, and the other on the left, and called the name of that on the right hand Yakin, and the name of that on the left Boaz. Second Chronicles 4. Moreover, he made an altar of brass, 20 cubits the length thereof, and 20 cubits the breadth thereof, and 10 cubits the height thereof. Also he made a molten sea of 10 cubits from brim to brim, round in compass, and 5 cubits the height thereof, and a line of 30 cubits did compass it round about. And under it was a similitude of oxen, which did compass it round about, 10 in a cubit, compassing the sea round about. 2 rows of oxen were cast when it was cast. It stood upon 12 oxen, 3 looking toward the north, and 3 looking toward the west, and 3 looking toward the south, and 3 looking toward the east. And the sea was set upon them, and all their hinder parts were inward. And the thickness of it was a handbreadth, and the brim of it like the work of the brim of a cup, with flowers of lilies. And it received and held 3,000 baths. He made also 10 lavers, and put 5 on the right hand, and 5 on the left to wash in them. Such things as they offered for the burnt offering, they washed in them. But the sea was for the priests to wash in. And he made 10 candlesticks of gold, according to their form, and set them in the temple, 5 on the right hand, and 5 on the left. He made also 10 tables, and placed them in the temple, 5 on the right side, and 5 on the left. And he made 100 basins of gold. Furthermore, he made the court of the priests, and the great court, and doors for the court, and overlaid the doors of them with brass. And he set the sea on the right side of the east end, over against the south. And Huram made the pots, and the shovels, and the basins. And Huram finished the work that he was to make for King Shalomah, for the house of Elohim, to wit, the 2 pillars, and the pommels, and the chapiters which were on the top of the 2 pillars, and the 2 wreaths to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were on the top of the pillars, and 400 pomegranates on the 2 wreaths, 2 rows of pomegranates on each wreath, to cover the 2 pommels of the chapiters which were upon the pillars. He made also bases, and lavers made he upon the bases, 1 sea, and 12 oxen under it. The pot also, and the shovels, and the flesh hooks, and all their instruments did Huram his father make to King Shalomah, for the house of Yahuwah of bright brass. In the plain of Yarden did the king cast them, in the clay ground between Succoth and Zeridathah. Thus Shalomah made all these vessels in great abundance, for the weight of the brass could not be found out. And Shalomah made all the vessels that were for the house of Elohim, the golden altar also, and the tables whereon the showbread was set. Moreover, the candlesticks with their lamps, that they should burn after the manner before the oracle of pure gold, and the flowers, and the lamps, and the tongues, made he of gold, and that perfect gold. And the snuffers, and the basins, and the spoons, and the censers of pure gold. And the entry of the house, the inner doors thereof for the most holy place, and the doors of the house of the temple were of gold. Second Chronicles 5. Thus all the work that Shalomah made for the house of Yahuwah was finished. And Shalomah brought in all the things that David his father had dedicated, and the silver, and the gold, and all the instruments, put he among the treasures of the house of Elohim. Then Shalomah assembled the elders of Yasharel, and all the heads of the tribes, the chief of the fathers of the children of Yasharel, unto Jerusalem, to bring up the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah out of the city of David, which is Zion. Wherefore all the men of Yasharel assembled themselves unto the king in the feast, which was in the 7th month. And all the elders of Yasharel came, and the Levites took up the ark, and they brought up the ark, and the tabernacle of the congregation, and all the holy vessels that were in the tabernacle. These did the priests and the Levites bring up. Also King Shalomah and all the congregation of Yasharel that were assembled unto him before the ark sacrificed sheep and oxen, which could not be told nor numbered for multitude. And the priests brought in the ark of the covenant of Yahuwah unto his place, to the oracle of the house, into the most holy place, even under the wings of the cherubim. For the cherubim spread forth their wings over the place of the ark, and the cherubims covered the ark and the staves thereof above. And they drew out the staves of the ark, that the ends of the staves were seen from the ark before the oracle, but they were not seen without. And there it is unto this day. There was nothing in the ark save the 2 tables, which Moses put therein at Horeb, when Yahuwah made a covenant with the children of Yasharel, when they came out of Egypt. And it came to pass, when the priests were come out of the holy place, for all the priests that were present were sanctified, and did not then wait by course. Also the Levites, which were the singers, all of them of Asaph, of Heman, of Yeduthun, with their sons and their brethren, being arrayed in white linen, having cymbals and psalteries and harps, stood at the east end of the altar, and with them 120 priests, sounding with trumpets. It came even to pass, as the trumpeters and singers were as one, to make one sound to be heard in praising and thanking Yahuwah. And when they lifted up their voice with the trumpets and cymbals and instruments of music, and praised Yahuwah, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. That then the house was filled with a cloud, even the house of Yahuwah, even the house of Yahuwah, so that the priest could not stand to minister by reason of the cloud, for the glory of Yahuwah had filled the house of Elohim. Second Chronicles 6. Then said Shalomah, Yahuwah has said that he would dwell in the thick darkness. But I have built a house of habitation for thee, and a place for thy dwelling forever. And the king turned his face, and blessed the whole congregation of Yasharel. And all the congregation of Yasharel stood. And he said, Blessed be Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, who hath with his hands fulfilled that which he spake with his mouth to my father David, saying, Since the day that I brought forth my people out of the land of Egypt, I chose no city among all the tribes of Yasharel to build a house in, that my name might be there. Neither chose I any man to be a ruler over my people Yasharel. But I have chosen Jerusalem, that my name might be there, and have chosen David to be over my people Yasharel. Now it was in the heart of David my father to build a house for the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel. But Yahuwah said to David my father, Forasmuch as it was in thine heart to build a house for my name, thou didst well in that it was in thine heart. Notwithstanding, thou shalt not build the house, but thy son, which shall come forth out of thy loins, he shall build the house for my name. Yahuwah therefore hath performed his word that he hath spoken. For I am risen up in the room of David my father, and am set on the throne of Yasharel, as Yahuwah promised, and have built the house for the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel. And in it have I put the ark, wherein is the covenant of Yahuwah, that he made with the children of Yasharel. And he stood before the altar of Yahuwah in the presence of all the congregation of Yasharel, and spread forth his hands. For Shalomah had made a brazen scaffold of 5 cubits long, and 5 cubits broad, and 3 cubits high, and had set it in the midst of the court. And upon it he stood, and kneeled down upon his knees before all the congregation of Yasharel, and spread forth his hands toward heaven, and said, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, there is no Elohim like thee in the heaven, nor in the earth, which keepest covenant, and showest mercy unto thy servants, that walk before thee with all their hearts. Thou which hast kept with thy servant David my father that which thou hast promised him, and spakest with thy mouth, and hast fulfilled it with thine hand, as it is this day. Now therefore, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, keep with thy servant David my father that which thou hast promised him, saying, There shall not fail thee a man in my sight to sit upon the throne of Yasharel. Yet, so that thy children take heed to their way to walk in my law, as thou hast walked before me. Now then, O Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, let thy word be verified, which thou hast spoken unto thy servant David. But will Elohim in very deed dwell with men on the earth? Behold, heaven and the heaven of heavens cannot contain thee, how much less this house which I have built? Have respect, therefore, to the prayer of thy servant, and to his supplication, O Yahuwah, my Elohim, to hearken unto the cry and the prayer which thy servant prayeth before thee, that thine eyes may be open upon this house day and night, upon the place whereof thou hast said that thou wouldest put thy name there, to hearken unto the prayer which thy servant prayeth toward this place. Hearken therefore unto the supplication of thy servant, and of thy people Yasharel, which they shall make toward this place. Hear thou from thy dwelling place, even from heaven, and when thou hearest, forgive. If a man sin against his neighbor, and an oath be laid upon him to make him swear, and the oath come before thine altar in this house, then hear thou from heaven, and do, and judge thy servants, by requiting the wicked, by recompensing his way upon his own head, and by justifying the righteous, by giving him according to his righteousness. And if thy people Yasharel be put to the worse before the enemy, because they have sinned against thee, and shall return and confess thy name, and pray and make supplication before thee in this house, then hear thou from the heavens, and forgive the sin of thy people Yasharel, and bring them again unto the land which thou gavest to them and to their fathers. When the heaven is shut up, and there is no rain, because they have sinned against thee, yet if they pray toward this place, and confess thy name, and turn from their sin, when thou dost afflict them, then hear thou from heaven, and forgive the sin of thy servants, and of thy people Yasharel, when thou hast taught them the good way wherein they should walk, and send rain upon thy land, which thou hast given unto thy people for an inheritance. If there be dearth in the land, if there be pestilence, if there be blasting, or mildew, locusts, or caterpillars, if their enemies besiege them in the cities of their land, whatsoever sore, or whatsoever sickness there be, then what prayer or what supplication soever shall be made of any man, or of all thy people Yasharel, when every one shall know his own sore and his own grief, and shall spread forth his hands in this house, then hear thou from heaven thy dwelling place, and forgive, and render unto every man according unto all his ways, whose heart thou knowest. For thou only knowest the hearts of the children of men, that they may fear thee to walk in thy ways, so long as they live in the land which thou gavest unto our fathers. Moreover, concerning the stranger, which is not of thy people Yasharel, but is come from a far country, for thy great name's sake, and thy mighty hand, and thy stretched out arm, if they come and pray in this house, then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, and do according to all that the stranger calleth to thee for, that all the people of the earth may know thy name, and fear thee, as doth thy people Yasharel, and may know that this house which I have built is called by thy name. If thy people go out to war against their enemies by the way that thou shalt send them, and they pray unto thee toward this city which thou hast chosen, and the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from the heavens their prayer and their supplication, and maintain their cause. If they sin against thee, for there is no man which sinneth not, and thou be angry with them, and deliver them over before their enemies, and they carry them away captives unto a land far off or near, yet if they bethink themselves in the land whither they are carried captive, and turn and pray unto thee in the land of their captivity, saying, We have sinned, we have done amiss, and have dealt wickedly. If they return to thee with all their heart and with all their soul in the land of their captivity, whither they have carried them captives, and pray toward their land, which thou gavest unto their fathers, and toward the city which thou hast chosen, and toward the house which I have built for thy name, then hear thou from the heavens, even from thy dwelling place, their prayer and their supplications, and maintain their cause, and forgive thy people which have sinned against thee. Now, my Elohim, let, I beseech thee, thine eyes be open, and let thine ears be attent unto the prayer that is made in this place. Now therefore arise, O Yahuwah Elohim, into thy resting place, thou and the ark of thy strength. Let thy priests, O Yahuwah Elohim, be clothed with salvation, and let thy saints rejoice in goodness. O Yahuwah Elohim, turn not away the face of thine anointed. Remember the mercies of David, thy servant. Second Chronicles 7. Now when Shalomah had made an end of praying, the fire came down from heaven and consumed the burnt offering and the sacrifices, and the glory of Yahuwah filled the house. And the priests could not enter into the house of Yahuwah, because the glory of Yahuwah had filled Yahuwah's house. And when all the children of Yasharel saw how the fire came down and the glory of Yahuwah upon the house, they bowed themselves with their faces to the ground upon the pavement, and worshipped and praised Yahuwah, saying, For he is good, for his mercy endureth forever. Then the king and all the people offered sacrifices before Yahuwah, and King Shalomah offered a sacrifice of 22,000 oxen and 120,000 sheep. So the king and all the people dedicated the house of Elohim. And the priests waited on their offices, the Levites also with instruments of music of Yahuwah, which David the king had made to praise Yahuwah, because his mercy endureth forever, when David praised by their ministry. And the priests sounded trumpets before them, and all Yasharel stood. Moreover, Shalomah hallowed the middle of the court that was before the house of Yahuwah, for there he offered burnt offerings, and the fat of the peace offerings, because a brazen altar which Shalomah had made was not able to receive the burnt offerings, and the meat offerings, and the fat. Also at the same time Shalomah kept the feast 7 days, and all Yasharel with him, a very great congregation, from the entering in of Hamath unto the river of Egypt. And in the 8th day they made a solemn assembly, for they kept the dedication of the altar 7 days, and the feast 7 days. And on the 23rd day of the 7th month he sent the people away into their tents, glad and merry in heart, for the goodness that Yahuwah had showed unto David, and to Shalomah, and to Yasharel his people. Thus Shalomah finished the house of Yahuwah, and the king's house, and all that came into Shalomah's heart to make him the house of Yahuwah, and in his own house he prosperously effected. And Yahuwah appeared to Shalomah by night, and said unto him, I have heard thy prayer, and have chosen this place to myself for a house of sacrifice. If I shut up heaven, that there be no rain, or if I command the locust to devour the land, or if I send pestilence among my people, if my people, which are called by my name, shall humble themselves and pray, and seek my face, and turn from their wicked ways, then will I hear from heaven, and will forgive their sin, and will heal their land. Now mine eyes shall be open, and mine ears attent unto the prayer that is made in this place. For now have I chosen and sanctified this house, that my name may be there forever, and mine eyes and mine heart shall be there perpetually. And as for thee, if thou wilt walk before me, as David thy father walked, and do according to all that I have commanded thee, and shalt observe my statutes and my judgments, then will I establish the throne of thy kingdom, according as I have covenanted with David thy father, saying, There shall not fail thee a man to be ruler in Yasharel. But if ye turn away, and forsake my statutes and my commandments, which I have set before you, and shall go and serve other gods, and worship them, then will I pluck them up by the roots out of my land, which I have given them. And this house, which I have sanctified for my name, will I cast out of my sight, and will make it to be a proverb and a byword among all nations. And this house, which is high, shall be an astonishment to every one that passeth by it, so that he shall say, Why hath Yahuwah done thus unto this land and unto this house? And it shall be answered, Because they forsook Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, which brought them forth out of the land of Egypt, and laid hold on other gods, and worshipped them, and served them. Therefore hath he brought all this evil upon them. Second Chronicles 8. And it came to pass, at the end of 20 years, wherein Shlomo had built the house of Yahuwah and his own house, that the cities which Hiram had restored to Shlomo built them, and caused the children of Yasharel to dwell there. And Shlomo went to Hamath Zobah, and prevailed against it. And he built Tadmor in the wilderness, and all the store cities, which he built in Hamath. Also he built Beit Haran the upper, and Beit Haran the nether, fenced cities with walls, gates, and bars, and Baalath, and all the store cities that Shlomo had, and all the chariot cities, and the cities of the horsemen, and all that Shlomo desired to build in Jerusalem and in Lebanon, and throughout all the land of his dominion. As for all the people that were left of the Hittites, and the Amorites, and the Perizzites, and the Hivites, and the Jebusites, which were not of Yasharel, but of their children, who were left after them in the land, whom the children of Yasharel consumed not, them did Shlomo make to pay tribute until this day. But of the children of Yasharel did Shlomo make no servants for his work, but they were men of war, and chief of his captains, and captains of his chariots and horsemen. And these were the chief of King Shlomo's officers, even 250, that bare rule over the people. And Shlomo brought up the daughter of Pharaoh out of the city of David unto the house that he had built for her. For he said, My wife shall not dwell in the house of David king of Yasharel, because the places are holy, whereunto the ark of Yahuwah hath come. Then Shlomo offered burnt offerings unto Yahuwah on the altar of Yahuwah, which he had built before the porch, even after a certain rate every day, offering according to the commandment of Moses, on the Sabbaths, and on the new moons, and on the solemn feasts, 3 times in the year, even in the feast of unleavened bread, and in the feast of weeks, and in the feast of tabernacles. And he appointed, according to the order of David his father, the courses of the priests to their service, and the Levites to their charges, to praise and minister before the priests, as the duty of every day required. the porters also by their courses at every gate, for so had David the man of Elohim commanded. And they departed not from the commandment of the king unto the priests and Levites concerning any matter, or concerning the treasures. Now all the work of Shalomah was prepared unto the day of the foundation of the house of Yahuwah, and until it was finished. So the house of Yahuwah was perfected. Then went Shalomah to Ezion-Geber and to Eloth at the seaside in the land of Edom. And Huram sent him by the hands of his servants, ships and servants that had knowledge of the sea. And they went with the servants of Shalomah to Ophir, and took thence 450 talents of gold, and brought them to King Shalomah. Second Chronicles 9. And when the queen of Sheba heard of the fame of Shalomah, she came to prove Shalomah with hard questions at Jerusalem, with a very great company, and camels that bear spices, and gold in abundance, and precious stones. And when she was come to Shalomah, she communed with him of all that was in her heart. And Shalomah told her all her questions, and there was nothing hid from Shalomah which he told her not. And when the queen of Sheba had seen the wisdom of Shalomah, and the house that he had built, and the meat of his table, and the sitting of his servants, and the attendance of his ministers, and their apparel, his cupbearers also, and their apparel, and his ascent by which he went up into the house of Yahuwah, there was no more ruach in her. And she said to the king, It was a true report which I heard in mine own land of thine acts and of thy wisdom. Howbeit I believed not their words until I came, and mine eyes had seen it, and behold, the one half of the greatness of thy wisdom was not told me, for thou exceedest the fame that I heard. Happy are thy men, and happy are these thy servants, which stand continually before thee, and hear thy wisdom. Blessed be Yahuwah thy Elohim, which delighted in thee to set thee on his throne, to be king for Yahuwah thy Elohim, because thy Elohim loved Yasharel, to establish them forever. Therefore made he thee king over them, to do judgment and justice. And she gave the king 120 talents of gold, and of spices great abundance, and precious stones. Neither was there any such spice as the queen of Sheba gave King Shalomah. And the servants also of Huram, and the servants of Shalomah, which brought gold from Ophir, brought algum trees and precious stones. And the king made of the algum trees terraces to the house of Yahuwah, and to the king's palace, and harps and psalteries for singers, and there were none such seen before in the land of Yehudah. And King Shalomah gave to the queen of Sheba all her desire, whatsoever she asked, beside that which she had brought unto the king. So she turned and went away to her own land, she and her servants. Now the weight of gold that came to Shalomah in 1 year was 666 talents of gold, beside that which chapmen and merchants brought. And all the kings of Arabia and governors of the country brought gold and silver to Shalomah. And King Shalomah made 200 targets of beaten gold. 600 shekels of beaten gold went to one target. And 300 shields made he of beaten gold. 300 shekels of gold went to one shield. And the king put them in the house of the forest of Lebanon. Moreover, the king made a great throne of ivory, and overlaid it with pure gold. And there were 6 steps to the throne, with a footstool of gold, which were fastened to the throne, and stays on each side of the sitting place, and 2 lions standing by the stays. And 12 lions stood there on the one side and on the other upon the 6 steps. There was not the like made in any kingdom. And all the drinking vessels of King Shalomah were of gold, and all the vessels of the house of the forest of Lebanon were of pure gold. None were of silver. It was not anything accounted of in the days of Shalomah. For the king's ships went to Tarshish with the servants of Huram. Every 3 years once came the ships of Tarshish, bringing gold and silver, ivory and apes and peacocks. And King Shalomah passed all the kings of the earth in riches and wisdom. And all the kings of the earth sought the presence of Shalomah to hear his wisdom that Elohim had put in his heart. And they brought every man his present, vessels of silver, and vessels of gold, and raiment, harness, and spices, horses and mules, a rate year by year. And Shalomah had 4,000 stalls for horses and chariots, and 12,000 horsemen, whom he bestowed in the chariot cities, and with the king at Jerusalem. And he reigned over all the kings from the river even unto the land of the Philistines, and to the border of Egypt. And the king made silver in Jerusalem as stones, and cedar trees made he as the sycamore trees, that are in the low plains in abundance. And they brought unto Shalomah horses out of Egypt, and out of all lands. Now the rest of the acts of Shalomah, first and last, are they not written in the book of Nathan the prophet, and in the prophecy of Ahiyahu the Shilonite, and in the visions of Iddo the seer, against Jeroboam the son of Nebat? And Shalomah reigned in Jerusalem over all Yasharel 40 years. And Shalomah slept with his fathers, and he was buried in the city of David his father. And Rehoboam his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 10. And Rehoboam went to Shechem, for to Shechem were all Yasharel come to make him king. And it came to pass, when Jeroboam the son of Nebat, who was in Egypt, whither he had fled from the presence of Shalomah the king, heard it, that Jeroboam returned out of Egypt. And they sent and called him. So Jeroboam and all Yasharel came and spake to Rehoboam, saying, Thy father made our yoke grievous. Now therefore ease thou somewhat the grievous servitude of thy father, and his heavy yoke that he put upon us, and we will serve thee. And he said unto them, Come again unto me after 3 days. And the people departed. And King Rehoboam took counsel with the old men that had stood before Shalomah his father, while he yet lived, saying, What counsel give ye me to return answer to this people? And they spake unto him, saying, If thou be kind to this people, and please them, and speak good words to them, they will be thy servants forever. But he forsook the counsel which the old men gave him, and took counsel with the young men that were brought up with him, that stood before him. And he said unto them, What advice give ye that we may return answer to this people, which have spoken to me, saying, Ease somewhat the yoke that thy father did put upon us? And the young men that were brought up with him spake unto him, saying, Thus shalt thou answer the people that spake unto thee, saying, Thy father made our yoke heavy, but make thou it somewhat lighter for us. Thus shalt thou say unto them, My little finger shall be thicker than my father's loins. For whereas my father put a heavy yoke upon you, I will put more to your yoke. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So Jeroboam and all the people came to Rehoboam on the 3rd day, as the king bade, saying, Come again to me on the 3rd day. And the king answered them roughly. And King Rehoboam forsook the counsel of the old men, and answered them after the advice of the young men, saying, My father made your yoke heavy, but I will add thereto. My father chastised you with whips, but I will chastise you with scorpions. So the king hearkened not unto the people, for the cause was of Elohim, that Yahuwah might perform his word, which he spake by the hand of Ahiyahu the Shilonite to Jeroboam the son of Nebat. And when all Yasharel saw that the king would not hearken unto them, the people answered the king, saying, What portion have we in David? And we have none inheritance in the son of Yishai. Every man to your tents, O Yasharel. And now, David, see to thine own house. So all Yasharel went to their tents. But as for the children of Yasharel that dwelt in the cities of Yehuda, Rehoboam reigned over them. Then King Rehoboam sent Hadoram, that was over the tribute, and the children of Yasharel stoned him with stones, that he died. But King Rehoboam made speed to get him up to his chariot, to flee to Jerusalem. And Yasharel rebelled against the house of David unto this day. Second Chronicles 11. And when Rehoboam was come to Jerusalem, he gathered of the house of Yehuda and Benjamin 180,000 chosen men, which were warriors, to fight against Yasharel, that he might bring the kingdom again to Rehoboam. But the word of Yahuwah came to Shemayahu the man of Elohim, saying, Speak unto Rehoboam the son of Shalomah, king of Yehuda, and to all Yasharel in Yehuda and Benjamin, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah, Ye shall not go up, nor fight against your brethren. Return every man to his house, for this thing is done of me. And they obeyed the words of Yahuwah, and returned from going against Jeroboam. And Rehoboam dwelt in Jerusalem, and built cities for defense in Yehuda. He built even Bethlehem, and Etam, and Tekoa, and Beth-Zur, and Shoko, and Adulam, and Gath, and Marishah, and Ziph, and Adoraim, and Lachish, and Azekah, and Zorba, and Ayalon, and Hebron, which are in Yehuda and in Benjamin, fenced cities. And he fortified the strongholds, and put captains in them, and store of victual, and of oil, and wine. And in every several city he put shields and spears, and made them exceeding strong, having Yehuda and Benjamin on his side. And the priests and the Levites that were in all Yasharel resorted to him out of all their coasts. For the Levites left their suburbs and their possession, and came to Yehuda and Jerusalem. For Jeroboam and his sons had cast them off from executing the priest's office unto Yahuwah. And he ordained him priests for the high places, and for the devils, and for the calves which he had made. And after them out of all the tribes of Yasharel, such as set their hearts to seek Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, came to Jerusalem, to sacrifice unto Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. So they strengthened the kingdom of Yehuda, and made Rehoboam the son of Shalomah strong. 3 years. For 3 years they walked in the way of David and Shalomah. And Rehoboam took him Mahalath, the daughter of Yerimoth, the son of David, to wife, and Avihail, the daughter of Eliab, the son of Yishai, which bare him children, Yeush, and Shamariyahu, and Zaham. And after her he took Maacah, the daughter of Avshalom, which bare him Abiyahu, and Attai, and Ziza, and Shelomith. And Rehoboam loved Maacah, the daughter of Avshalom, above all his wives and his concubines. For he took 18 wives and 80 concubines, and begat 28 sons and 80 daughters. And Rehoboam made Abiyahu, the son of Maacah, the chief, to be ruler among his brethren, for he thought to make him king. And he dealt wisely, and dispersed of all his children throughout all the countries of Yehuda and Benjamin, unto every fenced city. And he gave them victual in abundance, and he desired many wives. Second Chronicles 12. And it came to pass, when Rehoboam had established the kingdom, and had strengthened himself, he forsook the law of Yahuwah, and all Yasharel with him. And it came to pass, that in the 5th year of King Rehoboam, Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, because they had transgressed against Yahuwah, with 1,200 chariots, and 80,000 horsemen, and the people were without number, that came with him out of Egypt, the Lubims, the Sukims, and the Ethiopians. And he took the fenced cities which pertained to Yehuda, and came to Jerusalem. Then came Shemayahu the prophet to Rehoboam, and to the princes of Yehuda, that were gathered together to Jerusalem because of Shishak, and said unto them, Thus saith Yahuwah, Ye have forsaken me, and therefore have I also left you in the hand of Shishak. Whereupon the princes of Yasharel and the king humbled themselves, and they said, Yahuwah is righteous. And when Yahuwah saw that they humbled themselves, the word of Yahuwah came to Shemayahu, saying, They have humbled themselves. Therefore I will not destroy them, but I will grant them some deliverance. And my wrath shall not be poured out upon Jerusalem by the hand of Shishak. Nevertheless, they shall be his servants, that they may know my service, and the service of the kingdoms of the countries. So Shishak, king of Egypt, came up against Jerusalem, and took away the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, and the treasures of the king's house. He took all. He carried away also the shields of gold, which Shalomah had made. Instead of which, King Rehoboam made shields of brass, and committed them to the hands of the chief of the guard, that kept the entrance of the king's house. And when the king entered into the house of Yahuwah, the guard came and fetched them, and brought them again into the guard chamber. And when he humbled himself, the wrath of Yahuwah turned from him, that he would not destroy him altogether. And also in Yehudah things went well. So King Rehoboam strengthened himself in Jerusalem, and reigned. For Rehoboam was 41 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 17 years in Jerusalem, the city which Yahuwah had chosen out of all the tribes of Yasharel, to put his name there. And his mother's name was Naamah, an Ammonitess. And he did evil, because he prepared not his heart to seek Yahuwah. Now the acts of Rehoboam, first and last, are they not written in the book of Shemayahu the prophet, and of Iddo the seer, concerning genealogies? And there were wars between Rehoboam and Jeroboam continually. And Rehoboam slept with his fathers, and was buried in the city of David. And Abiyahu his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 13. Now in the 18th year of King Jeroboam began Abiyahu to reign over Yehudah. He reigned 3 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Mikiyahu, the daughter of Uriel of Gibeah. And there was war between Abiyahu and Jeroboam. And Abiyahu set the battle in array with an army of valiant men of war, even 400,000 chosen men. Jeroboam also set the battle in array against him with 800,000 chosen men, being mighty men of valor. And Abiyahu stood up upon Mount Zemaraim, which is in Mount Ephraim, and said, Hear me, the Jeroboam, and all Yasharel. Ought ye not to know that Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel gave the kingdom over Yasharel to David forever, even to him and to his sons, by a covenant of salt? Yet Jeroboam the son of Nebat, the servant of Shalomah the son of David, is risen up, and hath rebelled against his Adonai. And there are gathered unto him vain men, the children of Belial, and have strengthened themselves against Rehoboam the son of Shalomah, when Rehoboam was young and tender-hearted, and could not withstand them. And now ye think to withstand the kingdom of Yahuwah in the hand of the sons of David. And ye be a great multitude, and there are with your golden calves, which Jeroboam made you for gods. Have ye not cast out the priests of Yahuwah, the sons of Aaron, and the Levites, and have made you priests after the manner of the nations of other lands? So that whosoever cometh to consecrate himself with a young bullock and 7 rams, the same may be a priest of them that are no gods. But as for us, Yahuwah is our Elohim, and we have not forsaken him. And the priests which minister unto Yahuwah are the sons of Aaron, and the Levites wait upon their business. And they burn unto Yahuwah every morning and every evening burnt sacrifices, and sweet incense. The showbread also set they in order upon the pure table, and the candlestick of gold, with the lamps thereof, to burn every evening, for we keep the charge of Yahuwah our Elohim. But ye have forsaken him. And, behold, Elohim himself is with us for our captain, and his priest was sounding trumpets to cry alarm against you. O children of Yasharel, fight ye not against Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, for ye shall not prosper. But Jeroboam caused an ambushment to come about behind them. So they were before Yehuda, and the ambushment was behind them. And when Yehuda looked back, behold, the battle was before and behind. And they cried unto Yahuwah, and the priests sounded with the trumpets. Then the men of Yehuda gave a shout, and as the men of Yehuda shouted, it came to pass that Elohim smote Jeroboam and all Yasharel before Abiyahu and Yehuda. And the children of Yasharel fled before Yehuda, and Elohim delivered them into their hand. And Abiyahu and his people slew them with a great slaughter. So there fell down slain of Yasharel 500,000 chosen men. Thus the children of Yasharel were brought under at that time, and the children of Yehuda prevailed, because they relied upon Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And Abiyahu pursued after Jeroboam, and took cities from him, Bet-El with the towns thereof, and Yeshenah with the towns thereof, and Ephraim with the towns thereof. Neither did Jeroboam recover strength again in the days of Abiyahu, and Yahuwah struck him, and he died. But Abiyahu waxed mighty, and married 14 wives, and begat 22 sons, and 16 daughters. And the rest of the acts of Abiyahu, and his ways, and his sayings, are written in the story of the prophet Iddo. Second Chronicles 14. So Abiyahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David. And Asa his son reigned in his stead. In his days the land was quiet 10 years. And Asa did that which was good and right in the eyes of Yahuwah his Elohim. For he took away the altars of the strange gods, and the high places, and brake down the images, and cut down the groves, and commanded Yehuda to seek Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, and to do the law and the commandment. Also, he took away out of all the cities of Yehuda the high places and the images, and the kingdom was quiet before him. And he built fenced cities in Yehuda, for the land had rest, and he had no war in those years, because Yahuwah had given him rest. Therefore he said unto Yehuda, Let us build these cities, and make about them walls, and towers, gates, and bars, while the land is yet before us, because we have sought Yahuwah our Elohim. We have sought him, and he hath given us rest on every side. So they built and prospered. And Asa had an army of men that bare targets and spears out of Yehuda, 300,000, and out of Benjamin that bare shields and drew bows, 280,000. All these were mighty men of valor. And there came out against them Zerah the Ethiopian, with a host of 1,000,000, and 300 chariots, and came unto Marishah. Then Asa went out against him, and they set the battle in array in the valley of Zephathah at Marishah. And Asa cried unto Yahuwah his Elohim, and said, Yahuwah, it is nothing with thee to help, whether with many or with them that have no power. Help us, O Yahuwah our Elohim, for we rest on thee, and in thy name we go against this multitude. O Yahuwah, thou art our Elohim, let not man prevail against thee. So Yahuwah smote the Ethiopians before Asa, and before Yehuda, and the Ethiopians fled. And Asa and the people that were with him pursued them unto Gerar, and the Ethiopians were overthrown, that they could not recover themselves, for they were destroyed before Yahuwah and before his host, and they carried away very much spoil. And they smote all the cities round about Gerar, for the fear of Yahuwah came upon them, and they spoiled all the cities, for there was exceeding much spoil in them. They smote also the tents of cattle, and carried away sheep, and camels in abundance, and returned to Jerusalem. Second Chronicles 15. And the Ruach of Elohim came upon Azaryahu the son of Oded, and he went out to meet Asa, and said unto him, Hear ye me, Asa, and all Yehuda and Benjamin. Yahuwah is with you, while ye be with him. And if ye seek him, he will be found of you. But if ye forsake him, he will forsake you. Now for a long season Yasharel hath been without the true Elohim, and without a teaching priest, and without law. But when they in their trouble did turn unto Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, and sought him, he was found of them. And in those times there was no peace to him that went out, nor to him that came in, but great vexations were upon all the inhabitants of the countries. And nation was destroyed of nation, and city of city, for Elohim did vex them with all adversity. Be ye strong, therefore, and let not your hands be weak, for your work shall be rewarded. And when Asa heard these words, and the prophecy of Oded the prophet, he took courage, and put away the abominable idols out of all the land of Yehuda and Benjamin, and out of the cities which he had taken from Mount Ephraim, and renewed the altar of Yahuwah that was before the porch of Yahuwah. And he gathered all Yehuda and Benjamin, and the strangers with them, out of Ephraim and Manasseh, and out of Simeon, for they fell to him out of Yasharel in abundance, when they saw that Yahuwah his Elohim was with him. So they gathered themselves together at Jerusalem in the 3rd month, in the 15th year of the reign of Asa. And they offered unto Yahuwah the same time of the spoil which they had brought 700 oxen and 7,000 sheep. And they entered into a covenant to seek Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers with all their heart and with all their soul, that whosoever would not seek Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel should be put to death, whether small or great, whether man or woman. And they swear unto Yahuwah with a loud voice, and with shouting, and with trumpets, and with cornets. And all Yehuda rejoiced at the oath, for they had sworn with all their heart, and sought him with their whole desire, and he was found of them. And Yahuwah gave them rest round about. And also concerning Ma'akah, the mother of Asa the king, he removed her from being queen, because she had made an idol in a grove. And Asa cut down her idol, and stamped it, and burnt it at the brook Kidron. But the high places were not taken away out of Yasharel. Nevertheless, the heart of Asa was perfect all his days. And he brought into the house of Elohim the things that his father had dedicated, and that he himself had dedicated, silver and gold and vessels. And there was no more war unto the 35th year of the reign of Asa. Second Chronicles 16. In the 36th year of the reign of Asa, Baasha, king of Yasharel, came up against Yehuda, and built Ramah, to the intent that he might let none go out or come in to Asa, king of Yehuda. Then Asa brought out silver and gold out of the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, and of the king's house, and sent to Ben-Hadad, king of Syria, that dwelt at Damascus, saying, There is a league between me and thee, as there was between my father and thy father. Behold, I have sent thee silver and gold. Go, break thy league with Baasha, king of Yasharel, that he may depart from me. And Ben-Hadad hearkened unto King Asa, and sent the captains of his armies against the cities of Yasharel. And they smote Iyon, and Dan, and Abel-Maim, and all the store cities of Naphtali. And it came to pass, when Baasha heard it, that he left off building of Ramah, and let his work cease. Then Asa the king took all Yehuda, and they carried away the stones of Ramah, and the timber thereof, wherewith Baasha was building. And he built therewith Geba and Mizpah. And at that time Hanani the seer came to Asa, king of Yehuda, and said unto him, Because thou hast relied on the king of Syria, and not relied on Yahuwah thy Elohim, therefore is the host of the king of Syria escaped out of thine hand. Were not the Ethiopians and the Lubim a huge host, with very many chariots and horsemen? Yet, because thou didst rely on Yahuwah, he delivered them into thine hand. For the eyes of Yahuwah run to and fro throughout the whole earth, to show himself strong in the behalf of them whose heart is perfect toward him. Herein thou hast done foolishly. Therefore from henceforth thou shalt have wars. Then Asa was wroth with the seer, and put him in a prison house, for he was in a rage with him because of this thing. And Asa oppressed some of the people the same time. And, behold, the acts of Asa, first and last, lo, they are written in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yasharel. And Asa, in the 39th year of his reign, was diseased in his feet, until his disease was exceeding great. Yet in his disease he sought not Yahuwah, but to the physicians. And Asa slept with his fathers, and died in the 41st year of his reign. And they buried him in his own sepulchres, which he had made for himself in the city of David, and laid him in the bed, which was filled with sweet odors and divers kinds of spices, prepared by the apothecary's art. And they made a very great burning for him. Second Chronicles 17. And Jehoshaphat his son reigned in his stead, and strengthened himself against Yasharel. And he placed forces in all the fenced cities of Yehuda, and set garrisons in the land of Yehuda, and in the cities of Ephraim, which Asa his father had taken. And Yahuwah was with Jehoshaphat, because he walked in the first ways of his father David, and sought not unto Baalim, but sought to Yahuwah Elohim of his father, and walked in his commandments, and not after the doings of Yasharel. Therefore Yahuwah established the kingdom in his hand, and all Yehuda brought to Jehoshaphat presents, and he had riches and honor in abundance. And his heart was lifted up in the ways of Yahuwah. Moreover, he took away the high places and groves out of Yehuda. And Yahuwah was with Jehoshaphat, because he walked in the first ways of his father David, and sought not unto Baalim, but sought to Yahuwah Elohim of his father, and walked in his commandments, and not after the doings of Yasharel. Therefore Yahuwah established the kingdom in his hand, and all Yehuda brought to Jehoshaphat presents, and he had riches and honor in abundance. And his heart was lifted up in the ways of Yahuwah. Moreover, he took away the high places and groves out of Yehuda. Also in the 3rd year of his reign he sent to his princes, even to Ben-Hael, and to Ovid-Yahu, and to Zechariah, and to Nathanael, and to Micaiah, to teach in the cities of Yehuda. And with them he sent Levites, even Shemaiah, and Nathaniah, and Zebadiah, and Asahel, and Shemiramoth, and Yehunathan, and Adoniyahu, and Tobiyahu, and Tobadoniyahu, Levites, and with them Elishama and Jehoram, priests. And they taught in Yehuda, and had the book of the law of Yahuwah with them, and went about throughout all the cities of Yehuda, and taught the people. And the fear of Yahuwah fell upon all the kingdoms of the lands that were round about Yehuda, so that they made no war against Jehoshaphat. Also some of the Philistines brought Jehoshaphat presents, and tribute silver, and the Arabians brought him flocks, 7,700 rams, and 7,700 he-goats. And Jehoshaphat waxed great exceedingly. And he built in Yehuda castles and cities of store. And he had much business in the cities of Yehuda, and the men of war, mighty men of valor, were in Yerushalayim. And these are the numbers of them according to the house of their fathers. Of Yehuda, the captains of thousands, Adnah the chief, and with him mighty men of valor 300,000. And next to him was Yehohanan the captain, and with him 280,000. And next him was Amasiyahu the son of Zikri, who willingly offered himself unto Yahuwah, and with him 200,000 mighty men of valor. And of Benjamin, Eliada, a mighty man of valor, and with him armed men with bow and shield 200,000. And next him was Yahuzabad, and with him 180,000 ready prepared for the war. These waited on the king, beside those whom the king put in the fenced cities throughout all Yehuda. Second Chronicles 18. Now Jehoshaphat had riches and honor in abundance, and joined affinity with Ahav. And after certain years he went down to Ahav to Samaria. And Ahav killed sheep and oxen for him in abundance, and for the people that he had with him, and persuaded him to go up with him to Ramoth Gilead. And Ahav king of Yasharel said unto Jehoshaphat king of Yehuda, Wilt thou go with me to Ramoth Gilead? And he answered him, I am as thou art, and my people as thy people, and we will be with thee in the war. And Jehoshaphat said unto the king of Yasharel, Inquire, I pray thee, at the word of Yahuwah today. Therefore the king of Yasharel gathered together of prophets 400 men, and said unto them, Shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And they said, Go up, for Elohim will deliver it into the king's hand. But Jehoshaphat said, Is there not here a prophet of Yahuwah besides, that we might inquire of him? And the king of Yasharel said unto Jehoshaphat, There is yet one man, by whom we may inquire of Yahuwah. But I hate him, for he never prophesied good unto me, but always evil. The same is Micaiah, the son of Imlah. And Jehoshaphat said, Let not the king say so. And the king of Yasharel called for one of his officers, and said, Fetch quickly Micaiah the son of Imlah. And the king of Yasharel, and Jehoshaphat king of Yehuda, sat either of them on his throne, clothed in their robes. And they sat in a void place at the entering in of the gate of Samaria, and all the prophets prophesied before them. And Zedekiah the son of Kenaanah had made him horns of iron, and said, Thus saith Yahuwah, With these thou shalt push Syria until they be consumed. And all the prophets prophesied so, saying, Go up to Ramoth Gilead, and prosper, for Yahuwah shall deliver it into the hand of the king. And the messenger that went to call Micaiah spake to him, saying, Behold, the words of the prophets declare good to the king with one assent. Let thy word, therefore, I pray thee, be like one of theirs, and speak thou good. And Micaiah said, As Yahuwah liveth, even what my Elohim saith, that will I speak. And when he was come to the king said unto him, Micaiah, shall we go to Ramoth Gilead to battle, or shall I forbear? And he said, Go ye up, and prosper, and they shall be delivered into your hand. And the king said to him, How many times shall I adjure thee, that thou say nothing but the truth to me in the name of Yahuwah? Then he said, I did see all Yasharel scattered upon the mountains, as sheep that have no shepherd. And Yahuwah said, These have no master. Let them return therefore every man to his house in peace. And the king of Yasharel said to Jehoshaphat, Did I not tell thee that he would not prophesy good unto me, but evil? Again he said, Therefore hear the word of Yahuwah. I saw Yahuwah sitting upon his throne, and all the host of heaven standing on his right hand and on his left. And Yahuwah said, Who shall entice Ahab king of Yasharel, that he may go up and fall at Ramoth Gilead? And one spake, saying after this manner, and another saying after that manner. Then there came out a Ruach, and stood before Yahuwah, and said, I will entice him. And Yahuwah said unto him, Wherewith? And he said, I will go out, and be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And Yahuwah said, Thou shalt entice him, and thou shalt also prevail. Go out, and do even so. Now therefore, behold, Yahuwah hath put a lying spirit in the mouth of these thy prophets, and Yahuwah has spoken evil against thee. Then Zedekiah the son of Canaanah came near, and smote Micaiah upon the cheek, and said, Which way went the Ruach of Yahuwah from me to speak unto thee? And Micaiah said, Behold, thou shalt see on that day, when thou shalt go into an inner chamber to hide thyself. Then the king of Yasharel said, Take ye Micaiah, and carry him back to Amon the governor of the city, and to Joash the king's son, and say, Thus saith the king, Put this fellow in the prison, and feed him with bread of affliction, and with water of affliction, until I return in peace. And Micaiah said, If thou certainly return in peace, then hath not Yahuwah spoken by me. And he said, Hearken, all ye people. So the king of Yasharel and Jehoshaphat the king of Yehuda went up to Ramoth Gilead. And the king of Yasharel said unto Jehoshaphat, I will disguise myself, and will go to the battle, but put thou on thy robes. So the king of Yasharel disguised himself, and they went to the battle. Now the king of Syria had commanded the captains of the chariots that were with him, saying, Fight ye not with small or great, save only with the king of Yasharel. And it came to pass, when the captains of the chariots saw Jehoshaphat, that they said, It is a king of Yasharel. Therefore they compassed about him to fight. But Jehoshaphat cried out, and Yahuwah helped him, and Elohim moved them to depart from him. For it came to pass, that when the captains of the chariots perceived that it was not the king of Yasharel, they turned back again from pursuing him. And a certain man drew a bow at a venture, and smote the king of Yasharel between the joints of the harness. Therefore he said to his chariot man, Turn thine hand, that thou mayest carry me out of the host, for I am wounded. And the battle increased that day. Howbeit the king of Yasharel stayed himself up in his chariot against the Syrians until the even. And about the time of the sun going down, he died. Second Chronicles 19. And Jehoshaphat the king of Yehuda returned to his house in peace to Jerusalem. And Jehu the son of Hanani the seer went out to meet him, and said to King Jehoshaphat, Shouldest thou help the ungodly, and love them that hate Yahuwah? Therefore is wrath upon thee from before Yahuwah. Nevertheless, there are good things found in thee, in that thou hast taken away the groves out of the land, and hast prepared thine heart to seek Elohim. And Jehoshaphat dwelt at Jerusalem, and he went out again through the people from Beersheba to Mount Ephraim, and brought them back unto Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And he set judges in the land, throughout all the fenced cities of Yehuda, city by city, and said to the judges, Take heed what ye do, for ye judge not for man, but for Yahuwah, who is with you in the judgment. Therefore now let the fear of Yahuwah be upon you. Take heed and do it. For there is no iniquity with Yahuwah our Elohim, nor respect of persons, nor taking of gifts. Moreover, in Jerusalem did Jehoshaphat set of the Levites, and of the priests, and of the chief of the fathers of Yasharel, for the judgment of Yahuwah, and for controversies, when they returned to Jerusalem. And he charged them, saying, Thus shall ye do in the fear of Yahuwah, faithfully and with a perfect heart. And what cause soever shall come to you of your brethren that dwell in their cities, between blood and blood, between law and commandment, statutes and judgments, ye shall even warn them that they trespass not against Yahuwah, and so wrath come upon you, and upon your brethren. This do, and ye shall not trespass. And, behold, Amariyahu the chief priest is over you in all matters of Yahuwah, and Zebadiyahu the son of Ishmael, the ruler of the house of Yehuda, for all the king's matters. Also the Levites shall be officers before you. Deal courageously, and Yahuwah shall be with the good. Second Chronicles 20. It came to pass after this also, that the children of Moab, and the children of Ammon, and with them other beside the Ammonites, came against Jehoshaphat to battle. Then there came some that told Jehoshaphat, saying, There cometh a great multitude against thee from beyond the sea, on this side Syria, and, behold, they be in Hazazon Tamar, which is in En-gedi. And Jehoshaphat feared, and set himself to seek Yahuwah, and proclaim the fast throughout all Yehuda. And Yehuda gathered themselves together to ask help of Yahuwah. Even out of all the cities of Yehuda, they came to seek Yahuwah. And Jehoshaphat stood in the congregation of Yehuda and Yerushalayim, in the house of Yahuwah, before the new court, and said, O Yahuwah Elohim of our fathers, art not thou Elohim in heaven? And rulest not thou over all the kingdoms of the heathen? And in thine hand is there not power and might, so that none is able to withstand thee? Art not thou our Elohim, who didst drive out the inhabitants of this land before thy people Yasharel, and gavest it to the seed of Abraham thy friend forever? And they dwelt therein, and have built thee a sanctuary therein for thy name, saying, If, when evil cometh upon us, as the sword, judgment, or pestilence, or famine, we stand before this house, and in thy presence, for thy name is in this house, and cry unto thee in our affliction, then thou wilt hear and help. And now, behold, the children of Ammon, and Moab, and Mount Seir, whom thou wouldest not let Yasharel invade, when they came out of the land of Egypt, but they turned from them, and destroyed them not. Behold, I say, how they reward us, to come to cast us out of thy possession, which thou hast given us to inherit. O our Elohim, wilt thou not judge them? For we have no might against this great company that cometh against us, neither know we what to do, but our eyes are upon thee. And all Yehuda stood before Yahuwah with their little ones, their wives, and their children. Then upon Yahaziel, the son of Zechariah, the son of Benayahu, the son of Yael, the son of Mattaniyahu, a Levite of the sons of Asaph, came the Ruach of Yahuwah in the midst of the congregation. And he said, Hearken ye, all Yehuda, and ye inhabitants of Yerushalayim, and thou King Jehoshaphat. Thus saith Yahuwah unto you, Be not afraid nor dismayed by reason of this great multitude, for the battle is not yours, but Elohim's. Tomorrow go ye down against them. Behold, they come up by the cliff of Ziz, and ye shall find them at the end of the brook, before the wilderness of Yeruel. Ye shall not need to fight in this battle. Set yourselves, stand ye still, and see the salvation of Yahuwah with you. O Yehuda and Yerushalayim, fear not, nor be dismayed. Tomorrow go out against them, for Yahuwah will be with you. And Jehoshaphat bowed his head with his face to the ground, and all Yehuda and the inhabitants of Yerushalayim fell before Yahuwah, worshiping Yahuwah. And the Levites of the children of the Kohathites and of the children of the Korhites stood up to praise Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel with a loud voice on high. And they rose early in the morning, and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa. And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood, and said, Hear me, O Yehuda, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in Yahuwah your Elohim, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper. And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto Yahuwah, and that should praise the beauty of holiness, as they went out before the army, and to say, Praise Yahuwah, for his mercy endureth forever. And when they began to sing and to praise, Yahuwah set ambushment against the children of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, which were come against Yehuda, and they were smitten. For the children of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, utterly to slay and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, every one helped to destroy another. And when Yehuda came toward the watchtower in the wilderness, they looked unto the multitude, and, behold, they were dead bodies fallen to the earth, and none escaped. And when Jehoshaphat and his people came to take away the spoil of them, they found among them in abundance both riches with the dead bodies and precious jewels, which they stripped off for themselves, more than they could carry away. And they were 3 days in gathering of the spoil, it was so much. And on the 4th day they assembled themselves in the valley of Berekah, for there they blessed Yahuwah. Therefore the name of the same place was called the Valley of Berekah unto this day. Then they returned, every man of Yehuda and Jerusalem, and Jehoshaphat in the forefront of them, to go again to Jerusalem with joy, for Yahuwah had made them to rejoice over their enemies. And they came to Jerusalem with psalteries and harps and trumpets unto the house of Yahuwah. And the fear of Elohim was on all the kingdoms of those countries, when they had heard that Yahuwah fought against the enemies of Yasharel. So the realm of Jehoshaphat was quiet, for his Elohim gave him rest round about. And Jehoshaphat reigned over Yehuda. He was 35 years old when he began to reign. And he reigned 25 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Azubah, the daughter of Shilhi. And he walked in the way of Asa his father, and departed not from it, doing that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah. Howbeit, the high places were not taken away, for as yet the people had not prepared their hearts unto the Elohim of their fathers. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoshaphat, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of Jehu the son of Hanani, who is mentioned in the book of the kings of Yasharel. And after this did Jehoshaphat king of Yehuda join himself with Ahaziah king of Yasharel, who did very wickedly. And he joined himself with him to make ships to go to Tarshish. And they made the ships in Ezion-Geber. Then Eleazar the son of Dodavah of Marishah prophesied against Jehoshaphat, saying, Because thou hast joined thyself with Ahaziah, Yahuwah hath broken thy works. And the ships were broken, that they were not able to go to Tarshish. Second Chronicles 21. Now Jehoshaphat slept with his fathers, and was buried with his fathers in the city of David. And Jehoram his son reigned in his stead. And he had brethren, the sons of Jehoshaphat, Azariah, and Jehiel, and Zechariah, and Azariah, and Mikael, and Shaphatiah. All these were the sons of Jehoshaphat, king of Yasharel. And their father gave them great gifts of silver, and of gold, and of precious things, with fenced cities in Yehuda. But the kingdom gave he to Jehoram, because he was the firstborn. Now when Jehoram was risen up to the kingdom of his father, he strengthened himself, and slew all his brethren with the sword, and divers also of the princes of Yasharel. Jehoram was 32 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 8 years in Jerusalem. And he walked in the way of the kings of Yasharel, like as did the house of Ahav. For he had the daughter of Ahav to wife, and he wrought that which was evil in the eyes of Yahuwah. Howbeit, Yahuwah would not destroy the house of David, because of the covenant that he had made with David, and as he promised to give a light to him and to his sons forever. In his days the Edomites revolted from under the dominion of Yehuda, and made themselves a king. Then Jehoram went forth with his princes, and all his chariots with him. And he rose up by night, and smote the Edomites which compassed him in, and the captains of the chariots. So the Edomites revolted from under the hand of Yehuda unto this day. The same time also did Libnah revolt from under his hand, because he had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers. Moreover, he made high places in the mountains of Yehuda, and caused the inhabitants of Jerusalem to commit fornication, and compelled Yehuda thereto. And there came a writing to him from Eliyahu the prophet, saying, Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim of David thy father, because thou hast not walked in the ways of Yehoshaphat thy father, nor in the ways of Asa king of Yehuda, but hast walked in the way of the kings of Yasharel, and has made Yehuda and the inhabitants of Jerusalem to go a-whoring, like to the whoredoms of the house of Ahav, and also hast slain thy brethren of thy father's house, which were better than thyself. Behold, with a great plague will Yahuwah smite thy people, and thy children, and thy wives, and all thy goods. And thou shalt have great sickness by disease of thy bowels, until thy bowels fall out by reason of the sickness, day by day. Moreover, Yahuwah stirred up against Jehoram the Ruach of the Philistines and of the Arabians that were near the Ethiopians, and they came up into Yehuda and brake into it, and carried away all the substance that was found in the king's house, and his sons also, and his wives, so that there was never a son left him, save Jehoahaz, the youngest of his sons. And after all this, Yahuwah smote him in his bowels with an incurable disease. And it came to pass that in process of time, after the end of 2 years, his bowels fell out by reason of his sickness. So he died of sore diseases. And his people made no burning for him, like the burning of his fathers. 32 years old was he when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 8 years, and departed without being desired. Howbeit they buried him in the city of David, but not in the sepulchres of the kings. 2 Chronicles 22. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem made Ahaziah his youngest son king in his stead. For the band of men that came with the Arabians to the camp had slain all the eldest. So Ahaziah the son of Jehoram king of Yehuda reigned. 42 years old was Ahaziah when he began to reign. And he reigned 1 year in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Athaliah, the daughter of Omri. He also walked in the ways of the house of Ahav, for his mother was his counselor to do wickedly. Wherefore he did evil in the sight of Yahuwah, like the house of Ahav, for they were his counselors after the death of his father, to his destruction. He walked also after their counsel, and went with Jehoram, the son of Ahav, king of Yasharel, to war against Hazael, king of Syria, at Ramoth-Gilead. And the Syrians smote Jehoram. And he returned to be healed in Yezreel, because of the wounds which were given him at Ramah, when he fought with Hazael, king of Syria. And Azariah, the son of Jehoram, king of Yehuda, went down to see Jehoram, the son of Ahav, at Yezreel, because he was sick. And the destruction of Ahaziah was of Elohim, by coming to Jehoram. For when he was come, he went out with Jehoram against Jehu the son of Nimshi, whom Yahuwah had anointed to cut off the house of Ahav. And it came to pass that, when Yahu was executing judgment upon the house of Ahav, and found the princes of Yehuda, and the sons of the brethren of Ahaziyahu that ministered to Ahaziyahu, he slew them. And he sought Ahaziyahu, and they caught him, for he was hid in Samaria, and brought him to Yahu. And when they had slain him, they buried him. Because, said they, he is a son of Yahushaphat, who sought Yahuwah with all his heart. So the house of Ahaziyahu had no power to keep still the kingdom. But when Athaliyahu, the mother of Ahaziyahu, saw that her son was dead, she arose and destroyed all the seed royal of the house of Yehuda. But Yahushabaeth, the daughter of the king, took Joash, the son of Ahaziyahu, and stole him from among the king's sons that were slain, and put him and his nurse in a bedchamber. So Yahushabaeth, the daughter of King Jehoram, the wife of Jehoiada, the priest, for she was a sister of Ahaziyahu, hid him from Athaliyahu, so that she slew him not. And he was with them hid in the house of Elohim 6 years. And Athaliyahu reigned over the land. Second Chronicles 23. And in the 7th year, Jehoiada strengthened himself, and took the captains of hundreds, Azariyahu the son of Yoroham, and Ishmael the son of Yehohanan, and Azariyahu the son of Obed, and Maaseyahu the son of Adeyahu, and Eliashaphat the son of Zikri, into covenant with him. And they went about in Yehuda, and gathered the Levites out of all the cities of Yehuda, and the chief of the fathers of Yasharel, and they came to Jerusalem. And all the congregation made a covenant with the king in the house of Elohim. And he said unto them, Behold, the king's son shall reign, as Yahuwah hath said of the sons of David. This is the thing that ye shall do. A third part of you entering on the Sabbath, of the priests and of the Levites, shall be porters of the doors. And a third part shall be at the king's house, and a third part at the gate of the foundation. And all the people shall be in the courts of the house of Yahuwah. But let none come into the house of Yahuwah, save the priests and they that minister of the Levites. They shall go in, for they are holy. But all the people shall keep the watch of Yahuwah. And the Levites shall compass the king round about, every man with his weapons in his hand. And whosoever else cometh into the house, he shall be put to death. But be ye with the king when he cometh in, and when he goeth out. So the Levites and all Yehuda did according to all things that Jehoiada the priest had commanded, and took every man his men that were come in on the Sabbath, with them that were to go out on the Sabbath. For Jehoiada the priest dismissed not the courses. Moreover, Jehoiada the priest delivered to the captains of hundreds spears and bucklers and shields that had been King David's, which were in the house of Elohim. And he set all the people, every man having his weapon in his hand, from the right side of the temple to the left side of the temple, along by the altar and the temple, by the king round about. Then they brought out the king's son, and put upon him the crown, and gave him the testimony, and made him king. And Jehoiada and his sons anointed him, and said, Elohim, save the king. Now when Athaliyahu heard the noise of the people, running and praising the king, she came to the people into the house of Yahuwah. And she looked, and, behold, the king stood at his pillar at the entering in, and the princes and the trumpets by the king. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and sounded with trumpets. Also the singers with instruments of music, and such as taught to sing praise. Then Athaliyahu rent her clothes, and said, Treason! Treason! Then Jehoiada the priest brought out the captains of hundreds that were set over the host, and said unto them, Have her forth of the ranges, and whoso followeth her, let him be slain with the sword. For the priest said, Slay her not in the house of Yahuwah. So they laid hands on her, and when she was come to the entering of the horse gate by the king's house, they slew her there. And Jehoiada made a covenant between him, and between all the people, and between the king, that they should be Yahuwah's people. Then all the people went to the house of Baal, and brake it down, and brake his altars, and his images in pieces, and slew Mattam the priest of Baal before the altars. And Jehoiada appointed the offices of the house of Yahuwah by the hand of the priests, the Levites, whom David had distributed in the house of Yahuwah, to offer the burnt offerings of Yahuwah, as it is written in the law of Moses, with rejoicing and with singing, as it was ordained by David. And he set the porters at the gates of the house of Yahuwah, that none which was unclean in anything should enter in. And he took the captains of hundreds, and the nobles, and the governors of the people, and all the people of the land, and brought down the king from the house of Yahuwah. And they came through the high gate into the king's house, and set the king upon the throne of the kingdom. And all the people of the land rejoiced, and the city was quiet, after that they had slain Athaliyahu with the sword. Second Chronicles 24. Joash was 7 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 40 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name was Zibiah of Beersheba. And Joash did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah all the days of Jehoiada the priest. And Jehoiada took for him 2 wives, and he begat sons and daughters. And it came to pass after this, that Joash was minded to repair the house of Yahuwah, and he gathered together the priests and the Levites, and said to them, Go unto the cities of Yehudah, and gather of all Yasharel money to repair the house of your Elohim, from year to year, and see that ye hasten the matter. Howbeit the Levites hastened it not. And the king called for Jehoiada the chief, and said unto him, Why hast thou not required of the Levites to bring in out of Yehudah and out of Jerusalem the collection, according to the commandment of Moses the servant of Yahuwah, and of the congregation of Yasharel, for the tabernacle of witness? For the sons of Athaliyahu, that wicked woman, had broken up the house of Elohim, and also all the dedicated things of the house of Yahuwah did they bestow upon Baalim. And at the king's commandment they made a chest, and set it without at the gate of the house of Yahuwah. And they made a proclamation through Yehudah and Jerusalem, to bring in to Yahuwah the collection that Moses the servant of Elohim laid upon Yasharel in the wilderness. And all the princes and all the people rejoiced, and brought in, and cast into the chest, until they had made an end. Now it came to pass, that at what time the chest was brought unto the king's office by the hand of the Levites, and when they saw that there was much money, the king's scribe and the high priest's officer came and emptied the chest, and took it, and carried it to his place again. Thus they did day by day, and gathered money in abundance. And the king and Jehoiada gave it to such as did the work of the service of the house of Yahuwah, and hired masons and carpenters to repair the house of Yahuwah, and also such as wrought iron and brass to mend the house of Yahuwah. So the workmen wrought, and the work was perfected by them, and they set the house of Elohim in his state, and strengthened it. And when they had finished it, they brought the rest of the money before the king and Jehoiada, whereof were made vessels for the house of Yahuwah, even vessels to minister, and to offer withal, and spoons, and vessels of gold and silver. And they offered burnt offerings in the house of Yahuwah continually all the days of Jehoiada. But Jehoiada waxed old, and was full of days when he died. 130 years old was he when he died. And they brought him in the city of David among the kings, because he had done good in Yasharel, both toward Elohim and toward his house. Now after the death of Jehoiada came the princes of Yehudah, and made obeisance to the king. Then the king hearkened unto them. And they left the house of Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, and served groves and idols, and wrath came upon Yehuda and Yerushalayim for this their trespass. Yet he sent prophets to them to bring them again unto Yahuwah, and they testified against them, but they would not give ear. And the Ruach of Elohim came upon Zechariah, the son of Jehoiada the priest, which stood above the people, and said unto them, Thus saith Elohim, Why transgress ye the commandments of Yahuwah, that ye cannot prosper? Because ye have forsaken Yahuwah, he hath also forsaken you. And they conspired against him, and stoned him with stones, at the commandment of the king in the court of the house of Yahuwah. Thus Joash the king remembered not the kindness which Jehoiada his father had done to him, but slew his son. And when he died, he said, Yahuwah look upon it, and require it. And it came to pass at the end of the year, that the host of Syria came up against him, and they came to Yehuda and Yerushalayim, and destroyed all the princes of the people from among the people, and sent all the spoil of them unto the king of Damascus. For the army of the Syrians came with a small company of men, and Yahuwah delivered a very great host into their hand, because they had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. So they executed judgment against Joash. And when they were departed from him, for they left him in great diseases, his own servants conspired against him for the blood of the sons of Jehoiada the priest, and slew him on his bed, and he died. And they buried him in the city of David, but they buried him not in the sepulchres of the kings. And these are they that conspired against him, Zabad the son of Shemaath, and Ammonites, and Jehozabad the son of Shimri of Moabites. Now concerning his sons, and the greatness of the burdens laid upon him, and the repairing of the house of Elohim, behold, they are written in the story of the book of the kings. And Amaziah his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 25. Amaziah was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem, and his mother's name was Jehoadan of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, but not with a perfect heart. Now it came to pass, when the kingdom was established to him, that he slew his servants that had killed the king his father. But he slew not their children, but did as it is written in the law in the book of Moses, where Yahuwah commanded, saying, The fathers shall not die for the children, neither shall the children die for the fathers, but every man shall die for his own sin. Moreover, Amaziah gathered Yehuda together, and made them captains over thousands, and captains over hundreds, according to the houses of their fathers, throughout all Yehuda and Benjamin. And he numbered them from 20 years old and above, and found them 300,000 choice men, able to go forth to war, that could handle spear and shield. He hired also 100,000 mighty men of valor out of Yasharel for 100 talents of silver. But there came a man of Elohim to him, saying, O king, let not the army of Yasharel go with thee, for Yahuwah is not with Yasharel, to wit, with all the children of Ephraim. But if thou wilt go, do it. Be strong for the battle. Elohim shall make thee fall before the enemy, for Elohim hath power to help and to cast down. And Amaziah said to the man of Elohim, But what shall we do for the 100 talents which I have given to the army of Yasharel? And the man of Elohim answered, Yahuwah is able to give thee much more than this. Then Amaziah separated them, to wit, the army that was come to him out of Ephraim, to go home again. Wherefore their anger was greatly kindled against Yehuda, and they returned home in great anger. And Amaziah strengthened himself, and led forth his people, and went to the valley of Salt, and smote of the children of Seir 10,000. And other 10,000 left alive did the children of Yehuda carry away captive, and brought them unto the top of the rock, and cast them down from the top of the rock, that they all were broken in pieces. But the soldiers of the army, which Amaziyahu sent back, that they should not go with him to battle, fell upon the cities of Yehuda, from Samaria even unto Bet-Haran, and smote 3,000 of them, and took much spoil. Now it came to pass, after that Amaziyahu was come from the slaughter of the Edomites, that he brought the gods of the children of Seir, and set them up to be his gods, and bowed down himself before them, and burned incense unto them. Wherefore the anger of Yahuwah was kindled against Amaziyahu, and he sent unto him a prophet, which said unto him, Why hast thou sought after the gods of the people, which could not deliver their own people out of thine hand? And it came to pass, as he talked with him, that the king said unto him, Art thou made of the king's counsel? Forbear. Why shouldest thou be smitten? Then the prophet forbare, and said, I know that Elohim hath determined to destroy thee, because thou hast done this, and hast not hearkened unto my counsel. Then Amaziyahu king of Yehuda took advice, and sent to Joash the son of Jehoahaz, the son of Yahu, king of Yasharel, saying, Come, let us see one another in the face. And Joash king of Yasharel sent to Amaziyahu king of Yehuda, saying, The thistle that was in Lebanon sent to the cedar that was in Lebanon, saying, Give thy daughter to my son to wife. And there passed by a wild beast that was in Lebanon, and trode down the thistle. Thou sayest, Lo, thou hast smitten the Edomites, and thine heart lifteth thee up to boast. Abide now at home. Why shouldest thou meddle to thine hurt, that thou shouldest fall, even thou, and Yehuda with thee? But Amaziyahu would not hear, for it came of Elohim, that he might deliver them into the hand of their enemies, because they sought after the gods of Edom. So Joash the king of Yasharel went up, and they saw one another in the face, both he and Amaziyahu king of Yehuda, at Beth-Shemesh, which belongeth to Yehuda. And Yehuda was put to the worst before Yasharel, and they fled every man to his tent. And Joash the king of Yasharel took Amaziyahu king of Yehuda, the son of Joash, the son of Jehoahaz, at Beth-Shemesh, and brought him to Jerusalem, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem from the gate of Ephraim to the corner gate, 400 cubits. And he took all the gold and the silver and all the vessels that were found in the house of Elohim with Obed-Edom, and the treasures of the king's house, the hostages also, and returned to Samaria. And Amaziyahu the son of Joash king of Yehuda lived after the death of Joash son of Jehoahaz king of Yasharel 15 years. Now the rest of the acts of Amaziyahu, first and last, behold, are they not written in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yasharel? Now after the time that Amaziyahu did turn away from following Yahuwah, they made a conspiracy against him in Jerusalem, and he fled to Lachish. But they sent to Lachish after him, and slew him there. And they brought him upon horses, and buried him with his fathers in the city of Yehuda. Second Chronicles 26. Then all the people of Yehuda took Uzziyahu, who was 16 years old, and made him king in the room of his father, Amaziyahu. He built Eloth and restored it to Yehuda. After that the king slept with his fathers. 16 years old was Uzziyahu when he began to reign, and he reigned 52 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Yekoliyahu of Jerusalem. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, according to all that his father Amaziyahu did. And he sought Elohim in the days of Zechariah, who had understanding in the visions of Elohim. And as long as he sought Yahuwah, Elohim made him to prosper. And he went forth and warred against the Philistines, and brake down the wall of Gath, and the wall of Yabneh, and the wall of Ashdod, and built cities about Ashdod, and among the Philistines. And Elohim helped him against the Philistines, and against the Arabians that dwelt in Gur-Baal, and the Mechumims. And the Ammonites gave gifts to Uzziyahu, and his name spread abroad even to the entering in of Egypt. For he strengthened himself exceedingly. Moreover, Uzziyahu built towers in Jerusalem at the corner gate, and at the valley gate, and at the turning of the wall, and fortified them. Also he built towers in the desert, and digged many wells, for he had much cattle, both in the low country and in the plains, husbandmen also, and vine dressers in the mountains, and in Carmel, for he loved husbandry. Moreover, Uzziyahu had a host of fighting men that went out to war by bands, according to the number of their account, by the hand of Yael the scribe, and Maaseyahu the ruler, under the hand of Hananiyahu, one of the king's captains. The whole number of the chief of the fathers of the mighty men of valor were 2,600, and under their hand was an army, 300,000 and 7,500, that made war with mighty power to help the king against the enemy. And Uzziyahu prepared for them throughout all the host shields and spears and helmets and habergeons and bows and slings to cast stones. And he made in Jerusalem engines invented by cunning men to be on the towers and upon the bulwarks, to shoot arrows and great stones withal. And his name spread far abroad, for he was marvelously helped, till he was strong. But when he was strong, his heart was lifted up to his destruction, for he transgressed against Yahuwah his Elohim, and went into the temple of Yahuwah to burn incense upon the altar of incense. And Azaryahu the priest went in after him, and with him 80 priests of Yahuwah that were valiant men. And they withstood Uzziyahu the king, and said unto him, It appertaineth not unto thee, Uzziyahu, to burn incense unto Yahuwah, but to the priests, the sons of Aaron, that are consecrated to burn incense. Go out of the sanctuary, for thou hast trespassed. Neither shall it be for thine honor from Yahuwah Elohim. Then Uzziyahu was wroth, and had a censer in his hand to burn incense. And while he was wroth with the priests, the leprosy even rose up in his forehead before the priests in the house of Yahuwah from beside the incense altar. And Azaryahu the chief priest and all the priests looked upon him, and behold, he was leprous in his forehead, and they thrust him out from thence. Yea, himself hasted also to go out, because Yahuwah had smitten him. And Uzziyahu the king was a leper unto the day of his death, and dwelt in a several house, being a leper, for he was cut off from the house of Yahuwah. And Jotham his son was over the king's house, judging the people of the land. Now the rest of the acts of Uzziyahu, first and last, did Yeshayahu the prophet, the son of Amoz, write. So Uzziyahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him with his fathers in the field of the burial, which belonged to the kings. For they said, He is a leper. And Jotham his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 27. Jotham was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. His mother's name also was Yahusha, the daughter of Zadok. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, according to all that his father Uzziyahu did. Howbeit he entered not into the temple of Yahuwah, and the people did yet corruptly. He built the high gate of the house of Yahuwah, and on the wall of Ophel he built much. Moreover, he built cities in the mountains of Yehudah, and in the forest he built castles and towers. He fought also with the king of the Ammonites, and prevailed against them. And the children of Ammon gave him the same year 100 talents of silver, and 10,000 measures of wheat, and 10,000 of barley. So much did the children of Ammon pay unto him, both the second year and the third. So Jotham became mighty, because he prepared his ways before Yahuwah his Elohim. Now the rest of the acts of Jotham, and all his wars, and his ways. Lo, they are written in the book of the kings of Yasharel and Yehuda. He was 25 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. And Jotham slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city of David, and Ahaz his son reigned in his stead. 2 Chronicles 28. Ahaz was 20 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 16 years in Jerusalem. But he did not that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, like David his father. For he walked in the ways of the kings of Yasharel, and made also molten images for Baalim. Moreover, he burnt incense in the valley of the son of Hinnom, and burnt his children in the fire, after the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahuwah had cast out before the children of Yasharel. He sacrificed also, and burnt incense in the high places, and on the hills, and under every green tree. Wherefore Yahuwah his Elohim delivered him into the hand of the king of Syria, and they smote him, and carried away a great multitude of them captives, and brought them to Damascus. And he was also delivered into the hand of the king of Yasharel, who smote him with a great slaughter. For Pekah the son of Ramaliyahu slew in Yehuda 120,000 in one day, which were all valiant men, because they had forsaken Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And Zikri, a mighty man of Ephraim, slew Maaseyahu, the king's son, and Azrikam, the governor of the house, and Elkanah, that was next to the king. And the children of Yasharel carried away captive of their brethren 200,000, women, sons, and daughters, and took also away much spoil from them, and brought the spoil to Samaria. But a prophet of Yahuwah was there, whose name was Oded, and he went out before the host that came to Samaria, and said unto them, Behold, because Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers was wroth with Yehuda, he hath delivered them into your hand, and ye have slain them in a rage that reacheth up unto heaven. And now ye purpose to keep under the children of Yehuda and Jerusalem for bondmen and bondwomen unto you? But are there not with you, even with you, sins against Yahuwah your Elohim? Now hear me therefore, and deliver the captives again, which ye have taken captive of your brethren, for the fierce wrath of Yahuwah is upon you. Then certain of the heads of the children of Ephraim, Azaryahu, the son of Yohanan, Barakiyahu, the son of Meshilemoth, and Yehizkiyahu, the son of Shallum, and Amasa, the son of Hadlai, stood up against them that came from the war, and said unto them, Ye shall not bring in the captives hither, for whereas we have offended against Yahuwah already, ye intend to add more to our sins and to our trespass. For our trespass is great, and there is fierce wrath against Yasharel. So the armed men left the captives and the spoil before the princes and all the congregation. And the men which were expressed by name rose up, and took the captives, and with the spoil clothed all that were naked among them, and arrayed them, and shod them, and gave them to eat and to drink, and anointed them, and carried all the feeble of them upon donkeys, and brought them to Jericho, the city of palm trees, to their brethren. Then they returned to Samaria. At that time did King Ahaz send unto the kings of Assyria to help him. For again the Edomites had come and smitten Yehuda, and carried away captives. The Philistines also had invaded the cities of the low country, and of the south of Yehuda, and had taken Beit Shemesh, and Ayalon, and Gederoth, and Shoko, with the villages thereof, and Timnah, with the villages thereof, Gimzo also, and the villages thereof, and they dwelt there. For Yahuwah had brought Yehuda low because of Ahaz king of Yasharel, for he made Yehuda naked, and transgressed sore against Yahuwah. And Tilgath-Pilneser, king of Assyria, came unto him, and distressed him, but strengthened him not. For Ahaz took away a portion out of the house of Yahuwah, and out of the house of the king, and of the princes, and gave it unto the king of Assyria. But he helped him not. And in the time of his distress did he trespass yet more against Yahuwah. This is that King Ahaz. For he sacrificed unto the gods of Damascus, which smote him. And he said, Because the gods of the kings of Syria help them, therefore will I sacrifice to them, that they may help me. But they were the ruin of him and of all Yasharel. And Ahaz gathered together the vessels of the house of Elohim, and cut in pieces the vessels of the house of Elohim, and shut up the doors of the house of Yahuwah. And he made him altars in every corner of Jerusalem. And in every several city of Yehuda he made high places to burn incense unto other gods, and provoked to anger Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers. Now the rest of his acts, and of all his ways, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yasharel. And Ahaz slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the city, even in Jerusalem, but they brought him not into the sepulchres of the kings of Yasharel. And Yechizkiyahu his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 29. Yechizkiyahu began to reign when he was 25 years old, and he reigned 29 years in Jerusalem. And his mother's name was Abiyahu, the daughter of Zechariah. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, according to all that David his father had done. He, in the first year of his reign, in the first month, opened the doors of the house of Yahuwah, and repaired them. And he brought in the priests and the Levites, and gathered them together into the east street, and said unto them, Hear me, ye Levites, sanctify now yourselves, and sanctify the house of Yahuwah Elohim of your fathers, and carry forth the filthiness out of the holy place. For our fathers have trespassed, and done that which was evil in the eyes of Yahuwah our Elohim, and have forsaken him, and have turned away their faces from the habitation of Yahuwah, and turned their backs. Also, they have shut up the doors of the porch, and put out the lamps, and have not burned incense, nor offered burnt offerings in the holy place unto the Elohim of Yasharel. Wherefore the wrath of Yahuwah was upon Yehuda and Jerusalem, and he hath delivered them to trouble, to astonishment, and to hissing, as ye see with your eyes. For, lo, our fathers have fallen by the sword, and our sons and our daughters and our wives are in captivity for this. Now it is in mine heart to make a covenant with Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, that his fierce wrath may turn away from us. My sons, be not now negligent, for Yahuwah hath chosen you to stand before him, to serve him, and that ye should minister unto him, and burn incense. Then the Levites arose, Mahath the son of Amasai, and Yoel the son of Azaryahu, of the sons of the Kohathites, and of the sons of Merari, Kish the son of Abdi, and Azaryahu the son of Yahalalel, and of the Gershonites, Joab the son of Zimmah, and Eden the son of Joah, and of the sons of Elizaphan, Shimri, and Yeiel, and of the sons of Asaph, Zechariah, and Mattaniyahu, and of the sons of Haman, Yehiel, and Shemai, and of the sons of Yeduthun, Shemayahu, and Uziel. And they gathered their brethren, and sanctified themselves, and came, according to the commandment of the king, by the words of Yahuwah, to cleanse the house of Yahuwah. And the priests went into the inner part of the house of Yahuwah to cleanse it, and brought out all the uncleanness that they found in the temple of Yahuwah into the court of the house of Yahuwah. And the Levites took it, to carry it out abroad into the brook Kidron. Now they began on the first day of the first month to sanctify, and on the 8th day of the month came they to the porch of Yahuwah. So they sanctified the house of Yahuwah in 8 days. And in the 16th day of the first month they made an end. Then they went in to Yechizkiyahu the king, and said, We have cleansed all the house of Yahuwah, and the altar of burnt offering, with all the vessels thereof, and the showbread table, with all the vessels thereof. Moreover, all the vessels which King Ahaz in his reign did cast away in his transgression have we prepared and sanctified, and, behold, they are before the altar of Yahuwah. Then Yechizkiyahu the king rose early, and gathered the rulers of the city, and went up to the house of Yahuwah. And they brought 7 bullocks, and 7 rams, and 7 lambs, and 7 he-goats, for a sin offering for the kingdom, and for the sanctuary, and for Yehudah. And he commanded the priests, the sons of Aaron, to offer them on the altar of Yahuwah. So they killed the bullocks, and the priests received the blood, and sprinkled it on the altar. Likewise, when they had killed the rams, they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. They killed also the lambs, and they sprinkled the blood upon the altar. And they brought forth the he-goats for the sin offering before the king and the congregation, and they laid their hands upon them. And the priests killed them, and they made reconciliation with their blood upon the altar, to make an atonement for all Yasharel. For the king commanded that the burnt offering and the sin offering should be made for all Yasharel. And he set the Levites in the house of Yahuwah with cymbals, with psalteries, and with harps, according to the commandment of David, and of God the king's seer, and Nathan the prophet. For so was a commandment of Yahuwah by his prophets. And the Levites stood with the instruments of David, and the priests with the trumpets. And Yechizkiyahu commanded to offer the burnt offering upon the altar. And when the burnt offering began, the song of Yahuwah began also with the trumpets, and with the instruments, ordained by David, king of Yasharel. And all the congregation worshipped, and the singers sang, and the trumpeters sounded, and all this continued until the burnt offering was finished. And when they had made an end of offering, the king and all that were present with him bowed themselves and worshipped. Moreover, Yechizkiyahu the king and the princes commanded the Levites to sing praise unto Yahuwah with the words of David and of Asaph the seer. And they sang praises with gladness, and they bowed their heads and worshipped. Then Yechizkiyahu answered and said, Now ye have consecrated yourselves unto Yahuwah. Come near, and bring sacrifices and thank offerings into the house of Yahuwah. And the congregation brought in sacrifices and thank offerings, and as many as were of a free heart, burnt offerings. And the number of the burnt offerings which the congregation brought was 70 bullocks, 100 rams, and 200 lambs. All these were for a burnt offering to Yahuwah. And the consecrated things were 600 oxen and 3,000 sheep. But the priests were too few, so that they could not flay all the burnt offerings. Wherefore their brethren the Levites did help them, till the work was ended, and until the other priests had sanctified themselves. For the Levites were more upright in heart to sanctify themselves than the priests. And also the burnt offerings were in abundance, with the fat of the peace offerings, and the drink offerings for every burnt offering. So the service of the house of Yahuwah was set in order. And Yechizkiyahu rejoiced, and all the people, that Elohim had prepared the people, for the thing was done suddenly. Second Chronicles 30. And Yechizkiyahu sent to all Yasharel and Yehudah, and wrote letters also to Ephraim and Manasseh, that they should come to the house of Yahuwah at Yerushalayim, to keep the Passover unto Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel. For the king had taken counsel, and his princes, and all the congregation in Yerushalayim, to keep the Passover in the 2nd month. For they could not keep it at that time, because the priests had not sanctified themselves sufficiently, neither have the people gathered themselves together to Yerushalayim. And the thing pleased the king and all the congregation. So they established a decree to make proclamation throughout all Yasharel, from Be'er Sheva even to Dan, that they should come to keep the Passover unto Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel at Yerushalayim. For they had not done it of a long time in such sort as it was written. So the post went with the letters from the king and his princes throughout all Yasharel and Yehudah, and according to the commandment of the king, saying, Ye children of Yasharel, turn again unto Yahuwah Elohim of Abraham, Ishak, and Yasharel, and he will return to the remnant of you that are escaped out of the hand of the kings of Assyria. And be not ye like your fathers and like your brethren, which trespass against Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers, who therefore gave them up to desolation, as ye see. Now be ye not stiff-necked, as your fathers were, but yield yourselves unto Yahuwah, and enter into his sanctuary, which he hath sanctified forever, and serve Yahuwah your Elohim, that the fierceness of his wrath may turn away from you. For if ye turn again unto Yahuwah, your brethren and your children shall find compassion before them that lead them captive, so that they shall come again into this land. For Yahuwah your Elohim is gracious and merciful, and will not turn away his face from you, if ye return unto him. So the post passed from city to city, through the country of Ephraim and Manasseh, even unto Zebulun. But they laughed them to scorn, and mocked them. Nevertheless, divers of Asher and Manasseh and of Zebulun humbled themselves, and came to Jerusalem. Also in Yehuda, the hand of Elohim was to give them one heart to do the commandment of the king and of the princes, by the word of Yahuwah. And there assembled at Jerusalem much people to keep the feast of unleavened bread in the 2nd month, a very great congregation. And they arose, and took away the altars that were in Jerusalem, and all the altars for incense took they away, and cast them into the brook Kidron. Then they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the 2nd month, and the priests and the Levites were ashamed, and sanctified themselves, and brought in the burnt offerings into the house of Yahuwah. And they stood in their place after their manner, according to the law of Moses, the man of Elohim. The priests sprinkled the blood, which they received of the hand of the Levites. For there were many in the congregation that were not sanctified. Therefore the Levites had the charge of the killing of the Passovers, for every one that was not clean, to sanctify them unto Yahuwah. For a multitude of the people, even many of Ephraim and Manasseh and Issachar and Zebulun, had not cleansed themselves, yet did they eat the Passover otherwise than it was written. But Yahusha prayed for them, saying, The good Yahuwah pardon every one that prepareth his heart to seek Elohim, Yahuwah Elohim of his fathers, though he be not cleansed, according to the purification of the sanctuary. And Yahuwah hearkened to Yahusha, and healed the people. And the children of Yasharel that were present at Jerusalem kept the feast of unleavened bread 7 days with great gladness. And the Levites and the priests praised Yahuwah day by day, singing with loud instruments unto Yahuwah. And Yahusha spake comfortably unto all the Levites that taught the good knowledge of Yahuwah. And they did eat throughout the feast 7 days, offering peace offerings, and making confession to Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers. And the whole assembly took counsel to keep other 7 days, and they kept other 7 days with gladness. For Yahusha, king of Yehuda, did give to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 7,000 sheep, and the princes gave to the congregation 1,000 bullocks and 10,000 sheep, and a great number of priests sanctified themselves. And all the congregation of Yehuda, with the priests and the Levites, and all the congregation that came out of Yasharel, and the strangers that came out of the land of Yasharel, and that dwelt in Yehuda, rejoiced. So there was great joy in Jerusalem, for since the time of Shlomo, the son of David, king of Yasharel, there was not the like in Jerusalem. Then the priests, the Levites, arose and blessed the people, and their voice was heard, and their prayer came up to his holy dwelling place, even unto heaven. Second Chronicles 31. Now when all this was finished, all Yasharel that were present went out to the cities of Yehuda, and brake the images in pieces, and cut down the groves, and threw down the high places, and the altars, out of all Yehuda and Benjamin, in Ephraim also, and Manasseh, until they had utterly destroyed them all. Then all the children of Yasharel returned, every man to his possession, into their own cities. And Yechizkiyahu appointed the courses of the priests and the Levites after their courses, every man according to his service, the priests and Levites for burnt offerings and for peace offerings, to minister and to give thanks, and to praise in the gates of the tents of Yahuwah. He appointed also the king's portion of his substance for the burnt offerings, to wit, for the morning and evening burnt offerings, and the burnt offerings for the Sabbaths, and for the new moons, and for the set feasts, as it is written in the law of Yahuwah. Moreover, he commanded the people that dwelt in Jerusalem to give the portion of the priests and the Levites, that they might be encouraged in the law of Yahuwah. And as soon as the commandment came abroad, the children of Yasharel brought in abundance the firstfruits of corn, wine, and oil, and honey, and of all the increase of the field, and the tithe of all things brought they in abundantly. And concerning the children of Yasharel and Yehuda that dwelt in the cities of Yehuda, they also brought in the tithe of oxen and sheep, and the tithe of holy things, which were consecrated unto Yahuwah their Elohim, and laid them by heaps. In the 3rd month they began to lay the foundation of the heaps, and finished them in the 7th month. And when Yechizkiyahu and the princes came and saw the heaps, they blessed Yahuwah and his people Yasharel. Then Yechizkiyahu questioned with the priests and the Levites concerning the heaps. And Azaryahu, the chief priest of the house of Zadok, answered him, and said, Since the people began to bring the offerings into the house of Yahuwah, we have had enough to eat, and have left plenty. For Yahuwah hath blessed his people, and that which is left is this great store. Then Yechizkiyahu commanded to prepare chambers in the house of Yahuwah, and they prepared them. And they brought in the offerings and the tithes and the dedicated things faithfully, over which Conaniyahu the Levite was ruler, and Shemai his brother was the next, and Yehiel, and Azaziyahu, and Nahath, and Asahel, and Yerimoth, and Jozabad, and Eliel, and Ismakiyahu, and Mahath, and Benayahu were overseers under the hand of Conaniyahu, and Shemai his brother, at the commandment of Yechizkiyahu the king, and Azaryahu the ruler of the house of Elohim. And Korah the son of Imnah the Levite, the porter toward the east, was over the freewill offerings of Elohim, to distribute the oblations and the most holy things. And next him were Eden, and Miniamin, and Yeshua, and Shemayahu, Amariyahu, and Shakaniyahu, in the cities of the priests, in their set office, to give to their brethren by courses, as well to the great as to the small, beside their genealogy of males, from 3 years old and upward, even unto every one that entereth into the house of Yahuwah, his daily portion for their service, and their charges according to their courses, both to the genealogy of the priests by the house of their fathers, and the Levites, from 20 years old and upward, and their charges by their courses, and to the genealogy of all their little ones, their wives, and their sons, and their daughters, through all the congregation, for in their set office they sanctified themselves in holiness. Also of the sons of Aaron, the priests, which were in the fields of the suburbs of their cities, in every several city, the men that were expressed by name, to give portions to all the males among the priests, and to all that were reckoned by genealogies among the Levites. And thus did Yechizkiyahu throughout all Yehuda, and wrought that which was good and right and truth before Yahuwah his Elohim. And in every work that he began in the service of the house of Elohim, and in the law, and in the commandments, to seek his Elohim, he did it with all his heart, and prospered. Second Chronicles 32. After these things, and the establishment thereof, Sennacherib, king of Assyria, came and entered into Yehuda, and encamped against the fenced cities, and thought to win them for himself. And when Yechizkiyahu saw that Sennacherib was come, and that he was purposed to fight against Jerusalem, he took counsel with his princes and his mighty men to stop the waters of the fountains which were without the city, and they did help him. So there was gathered much people together, who stopped all the fountains and the brook that ran through the midst of the land, saying, Why should the kings of Assyria come and find much water? Also he strengthened himself, and built up all the wall that was broken, and raised it up to the towers, and another wall without, and repaired Millo in the city of David, and made darts and shields in abundance. And he set captains of war over the people, and gathered them together to him in the street of the gate of the city, and spake comfortably to them, saying, Be strong and courageous, be not afraid nor dismayed for the king of Assyria, nor for all the multitude that is with him, for there be more with us than with him. With him is an arm of flesh, but with us is Yahuwah our Elohim to help us, and to fight our battles. And the people rested themselves upon the words of Yechizkiyahu, king of Yehuda. After this did Sennacherib, king of Assyria, send his servants to Jerusalem, but he himself laid siege against Lachish, and all his power with him, unto Yechizkiyahu, king of Yehuda, and unto all Yehuda that were at Jerusalem, saying, Thus saith Sennacherib, king of Assyria, Whereon do ye trust, that ye abide in the siege in Jerusalem? Doth not Yechizkiyahu persuade you to give over yourselves to die by famine and by thirst, saying, Yahuwah our Elohim shall deliver us out of the hand of the king of Assyria? Hath not the same Yechizkiyahu taken away his high places and his altars, and commanded Yehuda and Jerusalem, saying, Ye shall worship before one altar, and burn incense upon it? Know ye not what I and my fathers have done unto all the people of other lands? Were the gods of the nations of those lands any ways able to deliver their lands out of mine hand? Who was there among all the gods of those nations that my fathers utterly destroyed, that could deliver his people out of mine hand, that your Elohim should be able to deliver you out of mine hand? Now, therefore, let not Yechizkiyahu deceive you, nor persuade you on this manner, neither yet believe him. For no god of any nation or kingdom was able to deliver his people out of mine hand, and out of the hand of my fathers. How much less shall your Elohim deliver you out of mine hand? And his servant spake yet more against Yahuwah Elohim, and against his servant Yechizkiyahu. He wrote also letters to rail on Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, and to speak against him, saying, As the gods of the nations of other lands have not delivered their people out of mine hand, so shall not the Elohim of Yechizkiyahu deliver his people out of mine hand. Then they cried with a loud voice in the Yehudim speech unto the people of Jerusalem that were on the wall, to affright them and to trouble them, that they might take the city. And they spake against the Elohim of Jerusalem, as against the gods of the people of the earth, which were the work of the hands of man. And for this cause Yechizkiyahu the king, and the prophet Yeshayahu the son of Amoz, prayed and cried to heaven. And Yahuwah sent an angel, which cut off all the mighty men of valor, and the leaders and captains in the camp of the king of Assyria. So he returned with shame of face to his own land. And when he was come into the house of his God, they that came forth of his own bowels slew him there with the sword. Thus Yahuwah saved Yechizkiyahu and the inhabitants of Jerusalem from the hand of Sennacherib, the king of Assyria, and from the hand of all other, and guided them on every side. And many brought gifts unto Yahuwah to Jerusalem, and presents to Yechizkiyahu, king of Yehuda, so that he was magnified in the sight of all nations from thenceforth. In those days Yechizkiyahu was sick to the death, and prayed unto Yahuwah, and he spake unto him, and he gave him a sign. But Yechizkiyahu rendered not again according to the benefit done unto him, for his heart was lifted up. Therefore there was wrath upon him, and upon Yehuda and Jerusalem. Notwithstanding, Yechizkiyahu humbled himself for the pride of his heart, both he and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, so that the wrath of Yahuwah came not upon them in the days of Yechizkiyahu. And Yechizkiyahu had exceeding much riches and honor, and he made himself treasuries for silver and for gold, and for precious stones, and for spices, and for shields, and for all manner of pleasant jewels. Storehouses also for the increase of corn, and wine, and oil, and stalls for all manner of beasts, and coats for flocks. Moreover, he provided him cities, and possessions of flocks, and herds in abundance. For Elohim had given him substance very much. This same Yechizkiyahu also stopped the upper watercourse of Gihon, and brought it straight down to the west side of the city of David. And Yechizkiyahu prospered in all his works. Howbeit in the business of the ambassadors of the princes of Babylon, who sent unto him to inquire of the wonder that was done in the land, Elohim left him, to try him, that he might know all that was in his heart. Now the rest of the acts of Yechizkiyahu and his goodness, behold, they are written in the vision of Yeshayahu the prophet, the son of Amoz, and in the book of the kings of Yehuda and Yasharel. And Yechizkiyahu slept with his fathers, and they buried him in the chiefest of the sepulchres of the sons of David. And all Yehuda and the inhabitants of Yerushalayim did him honor at his death. And Manasseh his son reigned in his stead. Second Chronicles 33. Manasseh was 12 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 55 years in Yerushalayim, but did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, like unto the abominations of the heathen, whom Yahuwah had cast out before the children of Yasharel. For he built again the high places which Yechizkiyahu his father had broken down, and he reared up altars for Baalim, and made groves, and worshipped all the host of heaven, and served them. Also he built altars in the house of Yahuwah, whereof Yahuwah had said, In Yerushalayim shall my name be forever. And he built altars for all the host of heaven in the two courts of the house of Yahuwah. And he caused his children to pass through the fire in the valley of the son of Hinnom. Also, he observed times, and used enchantments, and used witchcraft, and dealt with a familiar ruach, and with wizards. He wrought much evil in the sight of Yahuwah, to provoke him to anger. And he set a carved image, the idol which he had made, in the house of Elohim, of which Elohim had said to David and to Shalomah his son, In this house and in Yerushalayim, which I have chosen before all the tribes of Yasharel, will I put my name forever. Neither will I any more remove the foot of Yasharel from out of the land which I have appointed for your fathers, so that they will take heed to do all that I have commanded them, according to the whole law and the statutes and the ordinances by the hand of Moses. So Manasseh made Yehuda and the inhabitants of Yerushalayim to err, and to do worse than the heathen whom Yahuwah had destroyed before the children of Yasharel. And Yahuwah spake to Manasseh and to his people, but they would not hearken. Wherefore Yahuwah brought upon them the captains of the host of the king of Assyria, which took Manasseh among the thorns, and bound him with fetters, and carried him to Babylon. And when he was in affliction, he besought Yahuwah his Elohim, and humbled himself greatly before the Elohim of his fathers. And he prayed unto him, and he was entreated of him, and heard his supplication, and brought him again to Yerushalayim into his kingdom. Then Manasseh knew that Yahuwah, he was Elohim. Now after this he built a wall without the city of David, on the west side of Gihon, in the valley, even to the entering in at the fish gate, and compassed about Ophel, and raised it up a very great height, and put captains of war in all the fenced cities of Yehuda. And he took away the strange gods, and the idol out of the house of Yahuwah, and all the altars that he had built in the mount of the house of Yahuwah, and in Yerushalayim, and cast them out of the city. And he repaired the altar of Yahuwah, and sacrificed thereon peace offerings and thank offerings, and commanded Yehuda to serve Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel. Nevertheless, the people did sacrifice still in the high places, yet unto Yahuwah their Elohim only. Now the rest of the acts of Manasseh, and his prayer unto his Elohim, and the words of the seers, that spake to him in the name of Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Yasharel. His prayer also, and how Elohim was entreated of him, and all his sin, and his trespass, and the places wherein he built high places, and set up groves, and graven images, before he was humbled. Behold, they are written among the sayings of the seers. So Manasseh slept with his fathers, and they buried him in his own house, and Amon his son reigned in his stead. Amon was 22 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 2 years in Jerusalem. But he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah, as did Manasseh his father. For Amon sacrificed unto all the carved images which Manasseh his father had made, and served them, and humbled not himself before Yahuwah, as Manasseh his father had humbled himself. But Amon trespassed more and more, and his servants conspired against him, and slew him in his own house. But the people of the land slew all them that had conspired against King Amon, and the people of the land made Yashiyahu his son king in his stead. Second Chronicles 34. Yashiyahu was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned in Jerusalem 31 years. And he did that which was right in the sight of Yahuwah, and walked in the ways of David his father, and declined neither to the right hand nor to the left. For in the 8th year of his reign, while he was yet young, he began to seek after the Elohim of David his father. And in the 12th year he began to purge Yehuda and Jerusalem from the high places, and the groves, and the carved images, and the molten images. And they brake down the altars of Baalim in his presence, and the images that were on high above them he cut down, and the groves, and the carved images, and the molten images he brake in pieces, and made dust of them, and strowed it upon the graves of them that had sacrificed unto them. And he burnt the bones of the priests upon their altars, and cleansed Yehuda and Jerusalem. And so did he in the cities of Manasseh, and Ephraim, and Simeon, even unto Naphtali, with their mattocks round about. And when he had broken down the altars and the groves, and had beaten the graven images into powder, and cut down all the idols throughout all the land of Yasharel, he returned to Jerusalem. Now in the 18th year of his reign, when he had purged the land and the house, he sent Shaphan the son of Azaliyahu, and Maaseyahu, the governor of the city, and Joah, the son of Joahaz, the recorder, to repair the house of Yahuwah his Elohim. And when they came to Hilkiyahu the high priest, they delivered the money that was brought into the house of Elohim, which the Levites that kept the doors had gathered of the hand of Manasseh and Ephraim, and of all the remnant of Yasharel, and of all Yehuda and Benjamin, and they returned to Jerusalem. And they put it in the hand of the workmen that had the oversight of the house of Yahuwah, and they gave it to the workmen that wrought in the house of Yahuwah, to repair and amend the house. Even to the artificers and builders gave they it, to buy hewn stone, and timber for couplings, and to floor the houses which the kings of Yehuda had destroyed. And the men did the work faithfully, and the overseers of them were Yahath and Ovadyahu, the Levites, of the sons of Merari, and Zechariah and Meshullam, of the sons of the Kohathites, to set it forward, and other of the Levites, all that could skill of instruments of music. Also they were over the bearers of burdens, and were overseers of all that wrought the work in any manner of service. And of the Levites there were scribes, and officers, and porters. And when they brought out the money that was brought into the house of Yahuwah, Hilkiyahu the priest found a book of the law of Yahuwah given by Moses. And Hilkiyahu answered and said to Shaphan the scribe, I have found the book of the law in the house of Yahuwah. And Hilkiyahu delivered the book to Shaphan. And Shaphan carried the book to the king, and brought the king word back again, saying, All that was committed to thy servants, they do it. And they have gathered together the money that was found in the house of Yahuwah, and have delivered it into the hand of the overseers, and to the hand of the workmen. Then Shaphan the scribe told the king, saying, Hilkiyahu the priest hath given me a book. And Shaphan read it before the king. And it came to pass, when the king had heard the words of the law, that he rent his clothes. And the king commanded Hilkiyahu and Ahikam the son of Shaphan, and Avdon the son of Micah, and Shaphan the scribe, and Asayahu a servant of the king's, saying, Go, inquire of Yahuwah for me, and for them that are left in Yasharel and in Yehuda, concerning the words of the book that is found. For great is the wrath of Yahuwah that is poured out upon us, because our fathers have not kept the word of Yahuwah, to do after all that is written in this book. And Hilkiyahu and they that the king had appointed went to Huldah the prophetess, the wife of Shallum the son of Tikvath, the son of Hazrah, keeper of the wardrobe. Now she dwelt in Jerusalem in the college, and they spake to her to that effect. And she answered them, Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, Tell ye the man that sent you to me, Thus saith Yahuwah, Behold, I will bring evil upon this place, and upon the inhabitants thereof, even all the curses that are written in the book, which they have read before the king of Yehuda, because they have forsaken me, and have burned incense unto other gods, that they might provoke me to anger with all the works of their hands. Therefore my wrath shall be poured out upon this place, and shall not be quenched. And as for the king of Yehuda, who sent you to inquire of Yahuwah, so shall ye say unto him, Thus saith Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel, concerning the words which thou hast heard. Because thine heart was tender, and thou didst humble thyself before Elohim, when thou heardest his words against this place, and against the inhabitants thereof, and humblest thyself before me, and didst rend thy clothes, and weep before me, I have even heard thee also, saith Yahuwah. Behold, I will gather thee to thy fathers, and thou shalt be gathered to thy grave in peace. Neither shall thine eye see all the evil that I will bring upon this place, and upon the inhabitants of the same. So they brought the king word again. Then the king sent and gathered together all the elders of Yehuda and Jerusalem. And the king went up into the house of Yahuwah, and all the men of Yehuda, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem, and the priests, and the Levites, and all the people, great and small. And he read in their ears all the words of the book of the covenant that was found in the house of Yahuwah. And the king stood in his place, and made a covenant before Yahuwah, to walk after Yahuwah, and to keep his commandments, and his testimonies, and his statutes, with all his heart, and with all his soul, to perform the words of the covenant which are written in this book. And he caused all that were present in Jerusalem and Benjamin to stand to it. And the inhabitants of Jerusalem did according to the covenant of Elohim, the Elohim of their fathers. And Yoshiyahu took away all the abominations out of all the countries that pertain to the children of Yasharel, and made all that were present in Yasharel to serve, even to serve Yahuwah their Elohim. And all his days they departed not from following Yahuwah, the Elohim of their fathers. Second Chronicles 35. Moreover, Yoshiyahu kept the Passover unto Yahuwah in Jerusalem, and they killed the Passover on the 14th day of the first month. And he set the priests in their charges, and encouraged them to the service of the house of Yahuwah, and said unto the Levites that taught all Yasharel, which were holy unto Yahuwah, Put the holy ark in the house which Shlomo the son of David, king of Yasharel, did build. It shall not be a burden upon your shoulders. Serve now Yahuwah your Elohim, and his people Yasharel, and prepare yourselves by the houses of your fathers, after your courses, according to the writings of David, king of Yasharel, and according to the writing of Shlomo his son. and stand in the holy place, according to the divisions of the families of the fathers of your brethren the people, and after the division of the families of the Levites. So kill the Passover, and sanctify yourselves, and prepare your brethren, that they may do according to the word of Yahuwah by the hand of Moses. And Yashayahu gave to the people of the flock lambs and kids, all for the Passover offerings, for all that were present, to the number of 30,000, and 3,000 bullocks. These were of the king's substance. And his princes gave willingly unto the people, to the priests and to the Levites, Hilkiyahu and Zechariah and Yehiel, rulers of the house of Elohim, gave unto the priests for the Passover offerings 2,600 small cattle and 300 oxen. Konaniyahu also, and Shemayahu, and Nethanael his brethren, and Hashabiyahu, and Yeiel, and Yozabad, chief of the Levites, gave unto the Levites for Passover offerings 5,000 small cattle and 500 oxen. So the service was prepared, and the priests stood in their place, and the Levites in their courses, according to the king's commandment. And they killed the Passover, and the priests sprinkled the blood from their hands, and the Levites flayed them. And they removed the burnt offerings, that they might give according to the divisions of the families of the people, to offer unto Yahuwah, as it is written in the book of Moses. And so did they with the oxen. And they roasted the Passover with fire, according to the ordinance. But the other holy offerings sod they in pots, and in cauldrons, and in pans, and divided them speedily among all the people. And afterward they made ready for themselves, and for the priests. Because the priests, the sons of Aaron, were busied in offering of burnt offerings and the fat until night. Therefore the Levites prepared for themselves, and for the priests, the sons of Aaron. And the singers, the sons of Asaph, were in their place, according to the commandment of David and Asaph, and Heman, and Yeduthun, the king's seer. And the porters waited at every gate. They might not depart from their service, for their brethren the Levites prepared for them. So all the service of Yahuwah was prepared the same day, to keep the Passover, and to offer burnt offerings upon the altar of Yahuwah, according to the commandment of King Yashayahu. And the children of Yasharel that were present kept the Passover at that time, and the feast of unleavened bread 7 days. And there was no Passover like to that kept in Yasharel, from the days of Shemuel the prophet. Neither did all the kings of Yasharel keep such a Passover as Yashayahu kept, and the priests, and the Levites, and all Yehudah and Yasharel that were present, and the inhabitants of Yerushalayim. In the 18th year of the reign of Yashayahu was this Passover kept. After all this, when Yashayahu had prepared the temple, Necho, king of Egypt, came up to fight against Carchemish by Euphrates, and Yashayahu went out against him. But he sent ambassadors to him, saying, What have I to do with thee, thou king of Yehudah? I come not against thee this day, but against the house wherewith I have war. For Elohim commanded me to make haste. Forbear thee from meddling with Elohim, who is with me, that he destroy thee not. Nevertheless, Yoshiyahu would not turn his face from him, but disguised himself, that he might fight with him, and hearkened not unto the words of Necho from the mouth of Elohim, and came to fight in the valley of Megiddo. And the archers shot at King Yashayahu, and the king said to his servants, Have me away, for I am sore wounded. His servants therefore took him out of that chariot, and put him in the second chariot that he had. And they brought him to Yerushalayim, and he died, and was buried in one of the sepulchres of his fathers. And all Yehudah and Yerushalayim mourned for Yashayahu. And Yirmiyahu lamented for Yashayahu, and all the singing men and the singing women spake of Yashayahu in their lamentations to this day, and made them an ordinance in Yasharel, and, behold, they are written in the lamentations. Now the rest of the acts of Yashayahu and his goodness, according to that which was written in the law of Yahuwah, and his deeds, first and last, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Yasharel and Yehudah. 2 Chronicles 36. Then the people of the land took Jehoahaz the son of Yoshiyahu, and made him king in his father's stead in Jerusalem. Jehoahaz was 23 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months in Jerusalem. And the king of Egypt put him down at Jerusalem, and condemned the land in 100 talents of silver and a talent of gold. And the king of Egypt made Eliakim his brother king over Yehuda and Jerusalem, and turned his name to Jehoiakim. And Necho took Jehoahaz his brother, and carried him to Egypt. Jehoiakim was 25 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah his Elohim. Against him came up Nebuchadnezzar, king of Babylon, and bound him in fetters, to carry him to Babylon. Nebuchadnezzar also carried of the vessels of the house of Yahuwah to Babylon, and put them in his temple at Babylon. Now the rest of the acts of Jehoiakim, and his abominations which he did, and that which was found in him, behold, they are written in the book of the kings of Yasharel and Yehuda. And Jehoiakim his son reigned in his stead. Jehoiakim was 8 years old when he began to reign, and he reigned 3 months and 10 days in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah. And when the year was expired, King Nebuchadnezzar sent and brought him to Babylon with the goodly vessels of the house of Yahuwah, and made Zedekiah his brother king over Yehuda and Jerusalem. And Zedekiah was 21 years old when he began to reign, and reigned 11 years in Jerusalem. And he did that which was evil in the sight of Yahuwah his Elohim, and humbled not himself before Yirmiyahu the prophet, speaking from the mouth of Yahuwah. And he also rebelled against King Nebuchadnezzar, who had made him swear by Elohim. But he stiffened his neck, and hardened his heart, from turning unto Yahuwah Elohim of Yasharel. Moreover, all the chief of the priests and the people transgressed very much after all the abominations of the heathen, and polluted the house of Yahuwah, which he had hallowed in Jerusalem. And Yahuwah Elohim of their fathers sent to them by his messengers, rising up betimes and sending, because he had compassion on his people and on his dwelling place. But they mocked the messengers of Elohim, and despised his words, and misused his prophets, until the wrath of Yahuwah arose against his people, till there was no remedy. Therefore he brought upon them the king of the Chaldees, who slew their young men with the sword in the house of their sanctuary, and had no compassion upon young man or maiden, old man, or him that stooped for age. He gave them all into his hand. And all the vessels of the house of Elohim, great and small, and the treasures of the house of Yahuwah, and the treasures of the king, and of his princes, all these he brought to Babylon. And they burnt the house of Elohim, and brake down the wall of Jerusalem, and burnt all the palaces thereof with fire, and destroyed all the goodly vessels thereof. And them that had escaped from the sword carried he away to Babylon, where they were servants to him and his sons until the reign of the kingdom of Persia, to fulfill the word of Yahuwah by the mouth of Yirmiyahu, until the land had enjoyed her Sabbaths. For as long as she lay desolate, she kept Sabbath, to fulfill 70 years. Now in the first year of Cyrus, king of Persia, that the word of Yahuwah spoken by the mouth of Yirmiyahu might be accomplished, Yahuwah stirred up the ruach of Cyrus, king of Persia, that he made a proclamation throughout all his kingdom, and put it also in writing, saying, Thus saith Cyrus, king of Persia, all the kingdoms of the earth hath Yahuwah Elohim of heaven given me, and he hath charged me to build him a house in Jerusalem, which is in Yehuda. Who is there among you of all his people? Yahuwah his Elohim be with him, and let him go up. The end of the book of 2 Chronicles.